The big thing that I'm going to be focusing on
I'm
here is
resetting the timer. You have 8 minutes. If you up
sure.
to 8 minutes.
Am I good?
Yeah. I was just letting you know.
All right, cool. So every society quietly answers one question: what is a person worth? Christian ethics actually answers this with adamant clarity. Every human being bears the image of God, possesses inviolable dignity, and is therefore owed justice, love, and mercy. That single conviction is ordered law, inspired reforms, and restrained power for centuries. This is not just one ethic among many, it is a moral universe with a centerpiece. It is not just a floating list of rules, Christian ethics. It's grounded in the character of God and revealed in Jesus Christ. Its heart is in the twofold command: love God and love your neighbor, even your enemy, even in a threefold manner. It affirms that right and wrong are truly real things, universal propositions, because goodness is anchored in God's nature. And it declares that every person, from the unborn to the elderly, rich or poor, has an equal worth as an image bearer. And it is teleological. Humans are made for goodness, truth, and love. Virtue forms us together, that end, and grace empowers us when we cannot lift ourselves. What has it done, though, in this current history? This ethic has built hospitals, opposed infanticide, fed the poor not as a tactic, but as a duty. The university and scientific enterprise thrived in the conviction that a rational God made an intelligible world. Abolition, prison reforms, universal education, the civil rights movement, all of these different systems, they all spoke in the moral grammar of imago Dei and neighbor love. Yes, Christians have failed in the past. I will admit that. There's many things that I'm sure are going to be brought up in this discussion. Well, the Christian, the Crusades, all of these different types of things. But the fact that we actually have standards that allow us to call those things wrong. Hypocrisy actually condemns the hypocrite. It does not erase the ethic itself. What is the data that we currently have today? The evidence is actually overwhelming for the Christian ethic position when we actually look at the socioeconomic setups, as well as just like the geopolitical situation going on in societies that are Christian based. Marriage stability. A 14-year Harvard-based study of 66,000 women found that weekly religious attenders were 50% less likely to divorce than non-attenders. Suicide prevention. A landmark study in JAMA Psychiatry found that women who attend church weekly are 5 times less likely to die by suicide. For Catholics, it was a 95% lower risk. Religion literally saves lives, according to data. Even if that religion were to theoretically not even be true, it's still saving lives in the social setting. Including generosity. Evangelical Christians, especially like in the US, are far more likely to give and give larger amounts, nearly 4 times likely to donate over $2,500 a year compared to the unaffiliated. Nationally, 62% of religious households give to charity compared to 46% of non-religious. And then birth rates. This is the big one because we're talking about what is better for society. Pew Research actually shows that Christian averages 2.2 children, while the unaffiliated average only 1.8, below replacement theory. In other words, secularism cannot even sustain the future that it preaches. If every single person held to the secular ethic, technically speaking, the society would die out, according to today's data. As well as well-being. Gallup data shows 92% of weekly attenders report life satisfaction versus 82% of those who rarely, 92% of weekly attenders report life satisfaction versus 82% of those who rarely attend. Religious people who smoke and drink less live about 4 years longer on average and consistently report higher resilience under stress, as well as social capital. The studies show regular churchgoers trust more, volunteer more, and cooperate more. Robert Putnam called religious congregations America's most important school of civic virtue. And also with crime, meta-analysis finds religiosity as a protective factor against delinquency, and communities with more congregations per capita show lower crime, especially in disadvantaged areas. And I have the sources and the actual things that we can discuss later about every single one of these studies. Why not secular ethics? Because of the fact that everything hinges on a non-static form of a principle. Now, granted, I will talk about this, I'm sure, about whatever that principle is, but the majority of the people fall back on this thing called the harm principle. The only wrong is a harm to another, but this actually collapses into scrutiny. When you actually look at the subjectivity of it, does pornography cause harm to people? Does abandoning the elderly cause harm? Secular ethics has no consensus on this matter. Second, harm cannot actually explain any form of obligation. Even if something does cause harm, why should I be bound to stop when selfishness profits me? Third, harm-based morality is parasitic actually on Christian ethics. It assumes that every human being has worth, such as in their harm matters, or such that their harm actually matters. The very premise comes from the Christian doctrine of the image of God. Without that, without that, harm reduces to majority preference or evolutionary utility, neither of which binds conscience. You have things like the Izod gap or Hume's guillotine, that you cannot derive a binding of you must from mere facts. You can't get prescriptions just from descriptions, as well as the authority gap. Even if you propose a rule, what gives it the right to command my conscience when it hurts or costs me? Christian ethics actually answers both of these things. Morality is grounded in God's good nature, and it is revealed, embodied in the community, and sustained by grace, which can transform hearts where law and fear cannot. And yes, there are things obviously in the Old Testament that we're going to probably talk about today, but they are covenant bound, historically situated, hyperbolic in genre, and non-repeatable according to how God's nature works. The ethic Christians live by is the ethic of Christ, enemy love, mercy, and self-sacrifice. So let me close with this. Every society needs a moral grammar and can say with authority, every person matters. Truth binds the strong and protects the weak, and love is the highest law. Christian ethics has authored that grammar, sustained it, and when we live by it, still renews our common life. For the sake of human dignity, justice, and hope, it remains the best foundation to offer. That's all I have.
Thank you. And the atheists are up. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll start your 8-minute intro timer.
Perfect. I am ready.
All right, starting now.
Today, we are here to discuss Christian ethics versus secular ethics. We're going to be mostly referring to the 3 secular humanist manifestos as an authority on secular ethics, but not as gospel. Unlike our opponents, we atheists do not believe ultimate authority about how we live our lives should ever be submitted to fallible men. Humanism believes that man is a part of nature and that he has emerged as a result of the continuous process of evolution. Christianity claims humans are apart from nature and in dominion over it. In Genesis 1, God tells Adam and Eve to rule over the other animals. Throughout the Bible, God commits, supports, condones, and endorses animal cruelty. In Genesis 8, God accepts multiple sacrifices of critically endangered animals. Jesus leads by example in Mark 5 when he drowns 2,000 pigs for no reason. Humanism suggests we seek development and fulfillment in the here and now. We recognize that this is the one and only life we actually get and desire to make the most of it. Christianity, all of our righteous acts in this life are like filthy rags. This life doesn't matter. It's just a place to wipe your feet before the real life begins. In place of worship and prayer, which are worthless, humanism declares we should express our religious emotions in a heightened sense of personal life and in a cooperative effort to promote social well-being. In Genesis 11, God sees human cooperation and social well-being as a threat and confuses our languages in order to create dysfunction and chaos. Humanism declares there shall be no uniquely religious emotions and attitudes associated with the belief in the supernatural. Christianity, on the other hand, grounds itself in the supernatural, which it can't demonstrate. Every single moral pronouncement made by Christianity appeals to the divine revelation as its source without any evidence that the supernatural is real or interacts with the natural world in any way. It's nothing but men claiming to speak on God's behalf. Just trust me, bro. Not to mention how everything in Christianity is unclear and open to interpretation with no consensus even among believers. That's why there's 40,000 different denominations who all disagree with each other on just about everything. Seventh-day Adventists think we should still abide by Old Testament dietary restrictions like the prohibition on shrimp and pork. Humanism strives for a satisfactory life for all, not merely for the few. There is no chosen people who get special privileges. In secular humanism, we are committed to treating each other as having inherent worth and dignity. Our lives have value because we give them value. In Christianity, Human life only has value so far as God says so. And God says that every human being is a wretched, loathsome, vile creature worthy of eternal torture and maximum suffering. If God decides you deserve to die for no reason, then he just commands his chosen people to murder you and your entire family. Christianity suggests we should invoke the death penalty for picking up sticks, cursing your parents, using God's name in vain, adultery, kidnapping, and bearing false witness. Humanism promotes equality through the elimination of discrimination based on race, religion, sex, age, or national origin. Men and women should be considered equals and offered equal opportunity. 1 Corinthians embraces sexism by establishing a pecking order or pecker order: God, Christ, man, and then women. I thought Christ and God were the same person. I guess not. 1 Timothy says women are not allowed to teach or assume authority over a man. They must be quiet. Humanism recognizes that everyone should have the right to birth control, abortion, and divorce. It promotes sexual maturity and tolerance towards sex between consenting adults, and condemns sexual repression of religious purity culture. According to Deuteronomy 22, any woman who fails to provide proof of her virginity upon getting married shall be stoned to death. I don't know how someone would possibly demonstrate their virginity, but okay. Consent is not really a thing in the Bible. Women are merely regarded as property. Homosexuals get the death sentence, even though gay sex is completely harmless. Humanism values the separation of church and state as an imperative. No single religion should be promoted by the government over another. People should be free to adhere to any religion or no religion. But the number one rule in Christianity is in direct contradiction to this. Jesus says in Matthew 22 to love God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Which God? Well, Yahweh, of course, the one who endorses slavery, commands genocide, and uses rape as a punishment for innocent women. And what's the punishment for worshiping a different God? Death and eternal torture. In 1 Kings 18, God's prophet Elijah commands his followers to seize the prophets of Baal and slaughter them. Well, what about loving your neighbor as yourself? And that's the number 2 rule in Christianity. Well, as long as your neighbor isn't a Canaanite, Amorite, Hittite, Hivite, Perizzite, Jebusite, or Midianite, then God wants you to completely destroy them and butcher everything that breathes. For everyone else, they get the choice of slavery or death. That's God's definition of love. This would be the world if everyone actually followed Christianity. One where animal cruelty, sexism, intolerance, nihilism, slavery, infanticide, genocide, and rape are celebrated, and where freedom, consent, dignity, autonomy, and cooperation are demonized. Christianity versus secular ethics, I think the choice is easy. And I'll wrap it up there and hand it over to you, John.
Perfect. Let me move him. Boom. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll start your 8-minute timer.
Yep, I'm ready.
Cool. You've got 8 minutes.
All right. I don't have much to add to Jed's opening there. So as far as my opening statement, I would like to just put forth my own view of this, and that's a social moral framework is most effective when its norms are publicly accessible, non-arbitrary, and oriented towards promoting overall well-being and justice in plural societies. Secular ethics grounds norms in reasons, evidence, and shared human interests, making them publicly accessible. Non-arbitrary and directly oriented to well-being and justice. Christian divine command ethics grounds obligation in obedience to God's commands, which either render morality arbitrary or concede an independent moral standard, undermining public accessibility and orientation to social well-being as the first order aim. Therefore, secular ethics is the best social moral framework for society. That's my actual argument that I'm putting forth today, which is strongly in line with what Jed was putting out there, the Flying Spaghetti Auditor. So I do want to point out some things that were mentioned in the opposition's statements there. A lot of their qualifications for what makes a healthy society, I'm not exactly seeing as far as like either in the data, or these are not actually ways in which to gauge societal health, because from what I can tell, societies that are primarily secular, or at least secular run, fare much better when we look at actual statistical data concerning real qualifications for a healthy society. You can look at the Nordic countries that have well-being ratings in happiness, quality of life, and other areas far exceed what we see in highly Christian countries. The Christian countries are actually lagging. So I'd be interested to know, like for instance, why the opposition here, Wi-Fi and Bryce, are claiming that Christians lead in happiness. I'm not exactly seeing that in the data. So if they could illuminate that as well. They didn't mention a lot of the statistics for what we generally consider to be measures of a healthy society. So again, I would really just like to see the data on that, because I'm seeing things that are completely different. Like one of the things was birth rate that Wi-Fi mentioned, and I'm not sure how that factors into a healthy society. In fact, I think that you could probably make an argument that a high birth rate could in fact make a society less healthy, because you have several other different factors whenever you have a high birth rate. Like if you're pushing for a high birth rate to a society that can't sustain a high birth rate, or you're pushing births on people that don't want to have children, that can subsequently negatively affect your society in ways of like crime, or just basic well-being in the society. One particular metric was happiness, but like I said, the data is actually completely opposite. And I do want to read from Dr. Phil Zuckerman, who I actually got to meet in August this year. He's a really great guy, but he wrote a piece for Psychology Today, and it was peer reviewed by some they have on staff there. That says the correlation is clear and strong. The more secular tend to fare better than the more religious on a vast host of measures, including homicide and violent crime rates, poverty rates, obesity and diabetes rates, child abuse rates, educational attainment levels, income levels, unemployment rates, rates of sexually transmitted diseases, and teen pregnancy, etc. So, again, not seeing the kind of claims that are being made here, statistically speaking. And so I really hope that maybe we can get into like what studies they're using, because I'd really like to take another look at those and see if they're actually like representative of either humanity in general, or if it's like a very specific targeted sort of society that they're going for there. And the data is just all over the place about less religion means you have a more healthy country. This other article I have from Secular Arizona states that nearly every measure of health and well-being finds that less religious countries score better in the wellness criteria. That includes supportive family and youth systems, honest government, non-discrimination, protection of political and civil liberties, peace and prosperity with a high quality of life. So again, we are seeing the data just not line up with what the opening statements are from the opposition. One thing that was mentioned mentioned was the amount of charity that's given. I would say the data actually indicates that secular societies tend to set up a government system that alleviates the need for, charities as being a main driver for doing that. So you won't find a lot of secular people in those countries donating to charities, because those problems are already solved, and you don't need to donate to charities so that charities can do the work of the government. I think that would actually be better for here in America. If we want to increase health and well-being, we need to get religion out of government. Religion in government right now is looking to persecute the members of the LGBTQ community. And if you want to tie that to Christian ethics here, you've got Paul, the apostle, who reaffirms many of the statements that are said in the Old Testament. I know that they want to shy away from the Old Testament, but you really can't, considering how deeply tied the New Testament is to the Old Testament. Like, for instance, Paul the apostle restates how bad it is to be part of the LGBTQ community, which seems to reaffirm the punishment for those individuals being that they should be stoned to death. I would wonder if what else does Wi-Fi or Bryce think should be done as far as punishments that should be levied against those that breaks God's law. Should adulterers be stoned in the streets? Should gay people also be stoned in the streets? Who should be killed? I guess it would just depend on who God doesn't like that day, or which particular verses are going to ad hoc specially plead for. And I guess that'll be my time.
Perfect. So, in this bloodbath debate, you guys have about an hour and 20 minutes time available. You'll have about an hour and 20 minutes time available for that, and then we'll move into the conclusions. In this bloodbath debate, remember, straying off the topic is secular ethics or Christian ethics, which is better for society. Straying off topic is going to be a strike against you. You can't strike out, but that'll be called out for the audience for when they take their audience votes on the winners and the losers. Now, with this, we're going to go ahead and get into this. Let's have this be a good, clean fight. You guys try to allow each side to have relatively even amounts of time. Let's do our best not to yell at each other. I know it gets heated sometimes, but let's try to have a good conversation here. I'm big fans of pretty much all of y'all. Godless Engineer, I've been watching you probably since on and off over the years, since you were like as big as my YouTube is now. No joke. Wi-Fi Gospel, I've been friends with you since you had like 200 subscribers, and it's awesome watching you grow. Flying Spaghetti Auditor, you have fun arguments. I don't know you that well yet. Bryce J, I also don't know you that well yet, but you seem like a very intelligent person. I've got all of their links in the description to the video. So if you like anything that anyone says, please make sure to click their link and subscribe to them on YouTube. Several of them also operate on other platforms like TikTok and whatnot. So make sure that you check out their media if you like anything that they say. Everybody ready to get into this?
Yes, sir.
Ready.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer as soon as I read this question. So there is a starting question, actually, from Austin Sims. He said, question for all. Do you think Satan/God made me do it should be an acceptable defense in a court of law? Keep in mind, no equals secular is superior. Christian ethic equals you have to take that nonsense seriously. So do you think Satan/God made me do it should be an acceptable defense in a court of law? Okay, I'm starting the timer now. You have about an hour and 20 minutes.
I want Bryce to tackle that question, but I just want to say there are verses in the Bible where it literally says there's a test for how you know whether or not somebody heard something from God. And it's simply if that thing was true or not, right? So just because you can't take something seriously doesn't mean that secular ethics wins in that regard. But go ahead, Bryce.
I mean, the big thing regarding that, right, when you talk about it being admissible in the court of law, right, kind of like what Wi-Fi Gospel said, it's something that we have to know is actually either from God or from Satan. And no, due to the fact that we affirm that we have free will to choose to do whatever we please, that obviously if you said Satan made me do it, that obviously wouldn't apply at all, because we have the ability to follow Satan or reject Satan. That's why we have Christ, to be able to reject him in the first place. When it comes to saying God made me do it, that's not really something that can apply either. I mean, me personally, right, I'm an Orthodox Christian, so I hold to apostolic Christianity, and Wi-Fi Gospel is also inquiring the same thing. And so we also affirm that there is no such thing as private revelation, and that's not actually something that exists. That's actually a very new thing that comes from very early heresies called Montanism, where you believe that actually God can tell you to do new things that aren't mentioned in the scriptures, but that's not even historically accurate to the Christian position. So I honestly would just say that it's not actually a relevant question to the debate. It's not our position. We don't actually believe that God would just sneak something into your head or something like that in today's society. The faith has been delivered to the saints, as it says in the book of Jude in chapter 3.
Well, in the Bible, God does violate people's free will all the time, like with Pharaoh, but we don't even necessarily have to appeal to that because God could just tell someone to do something. Like if God told a mother to slaughter her children, like he supposedly did to Andrea Yates, which is a real life example, we have no way of telling whether God actually told Andrea Yates to off her kids or not. That's exactly what God did to Abraham. Privately tell him, hey, go on and sacrifice your son to me. How are we supposed to know that Andrea Yates didn't hear from God and that Abraham did? If it seems like it's in line with God's character either way.
As long as the children are in the womb, it's completely fine to slaughter them. So if God tells us to slaughter the children in the womb, then that'll be fine.
Well, I'm glad we agree on that.
Sorry, that's a category error there because fetuses are not considered children. So you're fallaciously claiming that right there.
What are children?
Children would be, the developmental stage of human beings after birth.
Okay, so am I not my dad's child?
After birth, are you currently streaming from your mom's womb?
Wait, you said it's a certain developmental stage, right?
It's a developmental stage after.
So
when I'm talking about a child in this particular respect, see what you're trying to do is you're trying to play word games here, and I'm just not going to let you do it.
It's called an
when
argument.
most people use the word child, we don't immediately think of a 50-year-old man, but a 50-year-old
right.
man.
But according
could
to
be the
Godless
son of
Engineer,
somebody.
a 50-year-old man is a child.
Yeah, so
I mean, you can call somebody a child of another person. That would be a determined thing, like that they descend from that person. In the particular respect of distinguishing between a fetus and a child, that's obviously not what we're talking about. So again, you're making a fallacious comparison.
No, because when we use child in the colloquial sense, we just mean the offspring of somebody else, which a fetus would be in that category.
Before we get too far into abortion, I would love for either Wi-Fi or Bryce to answer, how do we know if someone actually was told by God to kill their kids or not?
Well, I mean, I already said earlier that, like, in terms of actually being a part of like apostolic Christianity, something like that would simply just be denied as something that could be God would simply say to us, because of the fact that in our view, in our soteriology, there was an age of the prophets that existed, a specific time where God was providing specific revelation to people. And the way that people back then discovered that they were actually, people that were learning from God was the actual external miracles that were occurring outside of it, not just a voice in their head saying like, hey, do this crazy thing. No, God would come down and be like, giant pillar of fire, and be like, do you believe me now? Okay, now I need you to do this thing. That's a little bit different than someone simply just getting a whisper in their head like a schizophrenic weirdo. It's not
okay. So let me get in here real quick. Wi-Fi and Bryce, if individually, if y'all could affirm, do you think that unruly children should be killed?
Me? Like, no.
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 No. Okay. Why are y'all disobeying Jesus?
Where does it say that we need to kill them? Where does
Matthew
Jesus say
15:4. Matthew 15:4. So starting in Matthew 15:3, it says, Jesus replied, and why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, honor your father and your mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death.
Yeah. And so wait, isn't that during the stoning of the adulterous woman as well? Isn't that like around the same?
I don't know about that. I'm reading from Matthew 15.
Yeah. So it goes along the same premise, right? Jesus actually quotes things from the Old Testament all the time and says like, oh, well, if you're going to follow this, then why don't you do this? It's not the same thing as him literally saying to do that. Same thing with, like, for example, stoning the adulterous woman in the book of John, where people are like, we need to stone this woman. She committed adultery. What did Jesus do instead?
Why do you break the command of your God?
Yeah, well, that's not. I asked a question. I don't know if you maybe heard it.
Yeah, and I'm.
So what did Jesus do in the book of John in that section?
He
I'm
said
not
that
talking
he
about
who's
the book
out-
of John. I'm
he who's
talking
without
about
sin
Matthew.
should
Okay,
cast
so you're
the
just
first
gonna
stone.
avoid. You're just gonna avoid that question. Okay.
But I just
No,
I
no,
have
but
appreciate
no, no, no.
Keep
So
in
you're
mind, guys,
hold on.
there are 4 people on stage, so let's do our. I know it's all online and it's hard to see each other when you're talking, but let's be cognizant of that.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Sorry.
No, but my you're bringing up John, and that's fine. I think John's written by a totally different person.
That's
Like,
irrelevant to
you
the
know,
debate, by
50
the way.
years.
That's
It's
irrelevant
also
to the debate.
irrelevant to bring up the Gospel of John when I'm talking about Matthew 15.
I'm
and what
showing you
Jesus
that the
said.
morality that Jesus is teaching in the Gospels is not the way that you're purporting it. It actually is completely relevant because in
It's a
Matthew,
totally different
when he
fucking
gives
book,
a
dude.
literalist understanding of
Well,
the of the
okay,
law,
yeah, but no, but it's very plain here. Jesus replied, "And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? Your tradition is to not kill unruly kids, but it's obvious that the tradition of God is to kill unruly kids. So you're
right, let's pull it
disobeying
up.
God."
Well, and real quick, because
Hold up.
Bryce, you can speak to this more than
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
can. But after I say this, please talk about how the apostolic succession works in Orthodoxy and how we actually have a normative authority to tell us what Jesus currently wants for us right now. But either way, since the topic of the debate is which is better for society, Christian ethics or secular ethics, can you give me an example of a Christian today who stones their children for being unruly?
Andrea Yates, not for being unruly, but because she thought God told her to do it.
So that's not an example of somebody stoning her child for being unruly.
Well, thankfully, most modern Christians are better than their own Bible. They recognize that the Bible is a horrible book with really bad ideas, and
Most
even
Christians,
Jesus seemed
No,
to
they
realize
just
that in the
understand
book
the
of
age of the
John
prophet.
2, when he said that he who's without sin should cast the first stone. But I mean, the whole notion of covenant theology to me makes no sense. So some rules in the Old Testament stay the same, but then some of them are changed. But then for any rule that isn't specifically mentioned, how do we tell whether they stay the same or not?
well, considering that in the Old Testament they lived under a theocracy in Israel, and that in the New Testament they were still under a sort of theocracy where they had their own rule under King Herod, where they could follow their own rules. They didn't have to follow all the rules of Rome, right? But the fact is that they can't. It's not the same to live in a country that is not a theocracy and to carry out certain rules. Now, is there a way that one could make an argument that if we wanted a theocracy, then the death penalty would apply to situations like that? Yes, there is. But that's not what Jesus doesn't want a theocracy on earth. It's not what he came for.
Okay, so I wanted to address, by the way, Matthew 15, since you wanted to try to use that to show that we're supposed to apparently kill our children. So if you actually read verse 1, when it says, "Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said, 'Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat.' Then Jesus said, 'Well, why do you break the command of God where it says that we're supposed to put our kids to death? But you say that if anyone declares what might have been used to help their father or mother is devoted to God, they are not to honor their mother or father with it. Thus, you then nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition, you hypocrites. Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you." And then it says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship in vain, and their teachings are merely human rules." So when he's actually quoting it in verse 1, when the Jews are like, "Hey, this guy didn't wash his hands. Like, what the heck, man? The law says we can't do that." And Jesus is like, "Yeah, and the law also says that you're supposed to stone your children. What about it?" That's literally what he does. So, like, how is that actually us affirming that position?
Yeah, I mean, I can easily point to the part in, I believe it's either Matthew or Luke, where Jesus says,
But
"Not
I'm
a jot
talking
or
about
tittle
Matthew.
of the law." Hold on, I included Matthew in that. Not a jot or tittle will be erased from the law until heaven and earth pass away. So basically, yeah, I mean, he reaffirms all the Old Testament stuff. But to go
No, he
back to
doesn't.
the
No,
cases,
that-
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what that.
I can
It's
actually give
also
you the
worth pointing out
historical
that-
position of that because you're wrong.
Oh,
Completely
I
wrong.
really don't care about what you think about the
Okay, so
historical
you just
position.
make
I
basic
think
claims. Cool,
I think that
thanks.
it's really funny though that y'all appealed to a story in John that was added like much later to the Gospel of John
Again,
in order to make your points. Here.
Another random claim that's relevant to the debate. We're talking about
No,
ethics,
I
by
mean,
the way,
y'all
not about whether or
y'all
not Christianity is true. What if I
y'all
just concede that
y'all
Christianity
deviated
itself
away
is
from what
false?
I was
I
talking
can
about
still show
earlier
that it's
by
better for
bringing up
society.
John. So I brought up that point. Now to
That
address
point is
Wi-Fi
irrelevant to the
Gospels,
debate. This is an ethics
to
debate.
bring
It has nothing to
to
do with the
address
truth of Christianity. Do you
to
understand?
address Wi-Fi Gospels
Thank you.
ask about the children that are killed. Michael Pearl is a very prevalent child abuser that teaches other people to abuse children. You've got Hannah Grace
Well,
Rose in
that doesn't answer my
2011.
question.
Your question was about what
Show
Christians
me a
have killed their
Christian.
unreal. Right,
Yes.
Hannah Grace Rose Williams,
And
2011.
what
Hannah
did she
Williams,
do?
a 13-year-old Ethiopian adoptee, died of hypothermia and malnutrition. Her adopted parents,
doesn't sound like
Larry and
stoning.
Carrie Williams, regularly beat her with a 15-inch plastic tube recommended by Pearl, forced her to sleep in a barn, basically contributing to her death. Yeah, sure, that's not stoning, but it's definitely using Christian ethics in order to kill a child. There's Lydia Schatz in
And how is that Christian
2010,
ethics?
Sean
Christian
Paddock, 2006.
Can you answer the question? How is
How is
that
that
Christian
Christian
ethics?
Read Michael Pearl's
No,
slot
no,
that,
I'm asking you.
How's
Yeah.
that Christian ethics?
how's
Well,
that
God
Christian ethics?
specifically says to slaughter your children if they disobey or curse your parents. Exodus 21:17.
Yeah,
No.
and regarding that thing with the law, when Jesus says, and this also says this in Matthew 15, the whole aspect of saying like that these people would be put to death, Jesus was trying to make it clear that when it comes to certain things that were happening in the law, that a lot of people were not actually practicing things the way that they were intended. That's the entire point of verse 1 when he says he didn't wash his hands, and then he's like, well, you don't apparently kill your children.
Sure.
And
So, I mean,
do
like
you
that's
know
not
where
him
the
literally-
doctrine-
that's not him supporting killing your children.
Do you know where the
He's
doctrine
literally-
of
it's
2 or 3
rhetorical.
witnesses comes from?
What was the question? Why?
Do you know what the doctrine of 2 or 3 witnesses come from? Why we need witnesses today in court?
Well, the 2 or 3 witnesses thing, there's a verse in the Old Testament. I can't cite you the passage, but it says if 2 people say the same claim, then you can go ahead and kill somebody based on 2 testimonies.
Well, the correct understanding of that is that you can't just take your child and say, my child's not listening to me, so I'm going to drown them in a bathtub and beat them until they die.
Right?
That's
You have
not
to have
Christian
2 people
ethics.
say that the child's not listening, and then you can go ahead and drown them.
No, you have to have independent lines of witness, and especially for a stoning, stonings were community events. You didn't just stone somebody in your backyard, you brought them to the town square.
Doesn't
none
that
of
sound fun. A good old
nothing-
Christian gathering where you stone your children.
A good old, also, by the way, these situations that you brought up about these people like beating their children to death and stuff like that, did they actually do that because they thought that was Christian ethics?
Yes,
Really? Which one?
Michael Pearl's.
Michael Pearl's killed his child because of what again? I'm gonna look this up.
No. Michael Pearl wrote a book to train up a child that talks about subduing a child for Christ and beating them into submission.
Which one? What was the
Now-
book called?
Huh? To train
What's the
up a
book called?
child.
To train up a child?
Well, I just want to point out that what you guys seem to be doing is trying to do an internal critique, or I'm actually not quite sure what you're trying to do. If you're trying to do an internal critique, I'm not sure you're getting anywhere. If you're
Well,
trying to do an
Christianity-
external critique, hold on. If you're trying to do an external critique, I like to ask which one you're doing. If you're trying to do an external critique, I'd like for you to actually provide a moral theory in which you're calling these things bad.
I feel like that should be a knock against you because you're trying to get us into tag.
No, that has absolutely nothing to do with tag. You can provide any moral theory you want, and I will grant you the meta-ethical level of this moral theory, completely fine. But just because you have an arbitrary meta-ethical level of a theory doesn't mean that the theory itself is consistent with you calling these things bad. So it's not all
I mean, I believe that Jed laid it out before that we're going with secular humanism as our grounding there.
And what part of secular humanism says you can't beat your children?
I feel like doing the least amount of harm would suffice.
If it was objectively proven that beating your children would cause them less harm in the near, but way greater, better positive results in the future, would it then be okay?
No,
Yes,
it wouldn't, because
but
that's
studies show the exact opposite. Research shows
Right.
that beating your children and physical punishment is actually a detriment to
Okay.
child development.
So that was a hypothetical. So you
Yeah,
answered
and I
it
answered
correctly.
yes.
Yes.
If
Okay.
if beating your children was actually good for them, then I would say, yeah, I agree with it. But studies show that beating your children and physical punishment is actually detrimental to their well-being and their
see,
development.
that's called a loaded question.
No, it's a
probably
hypothetical. It's to
go and
test
look
your
that up.
logic.
No,
Okay, so-
right?
so you
Yeah,
guys
but
base
it was
everything-
loaded.
So you guys do base everything then with the secular humanism. Do you guys follow the secular humanist manifesto?
I don't
mean,
follow it
I-
to a T. Like I said, I don't believe it's gospel. I don't give my ultimate authority over it to it, but
Yeah.
I think it's mostly good.
Your solar
Right,
brain.
it's a good
your
it's a good
solar brain.
foundation to build off of.
Okay. So again, you guys use your principle as the harm principle, though, right? Like that's the ultimate foundation for describing something as good or bad.
I think it's pretty reasonable to me. Yeah, harm is bad, well-being is good.
Okay. So how do we determine whether or not something is harmful?
Well, there's a couple fundamental principles that we need to establish. One is that life is preferable to death, pleasure is preferable to pain, joy is preferable to sadness, health is better than sickness. So once we can agree on those, then it's pretty easy to see, stabbing someone in the face is bad for their well-being.
Well, I mean, all of those
I would-
situations, except for the last one, I would honestly argue can be demonstrated on the contrary with a lot of different types of people. So I'm not really sure how that actually is somehow your universal foundation for goodness.
Well, I mean,
You-
you could actually look at the pragmatic and statistical data on what constitutes as health and well-being, and we actually have measures for well-being in societies, and for how good a society actually is, which
Mhm.
is what I brought up earlier. Is the most secular societies seem to have high rates of well-being, whereas the more Christian a society is, the least it tracks on those measures.
So
Yeah,
we
so
can get
we
in.
can definitely get into the studies. I don't have a problem getting into the studies because like my opening obviously was really short and I didn't quote a bunch of things specifically, but I do have an astronomical amount of actual studies that we can specifically read if we really wanted to do some armchair science. But the thing that I'm talking about regarding the harm principle, right, is that you say that it depends on whether or not that's something like on the principles of life is better than death. What were the other ones, Jed? I'm sorry that there was life
health
is better than death.
sickness, joy is better than
sickness.
sadness, pleasure is better than pain.
Okay, so two of those that I want to reference: joy is better than pain, and life is better than death. Right? These two specific things. Did I just freeze? Am I still here?
You are frozen, but you're
You're
here.
good. We
I
can
can
Your
hear
keep
you.
audio,
moving.
your audio
Sorry.
stays fine, but your camera freezes.
Oh,
every
okay,
5 minutes.
sorry,
You're
my
fine.
bad. I have bad internet. So those two principles specifically, right? Is that like a universal or like an objective principle that we're actually basing everything off of, like life being better than death, or is that just like something that's considered useful in like a pragmatic sense, kind of like what Godless engineers said? Like, is it just pragmatic? Is it just useful?
When you say, is it objective? What do you mean exactly?
Yeah. So, like, is that standard something that would be considered independent, right, of the first human being, for example, stating that, life is better than death, right? So, like, if a man stands up one day and nobody else has ever said that statement in their life, and the man goes, life is better than death, and then everyone goes, oh, this dude's cooking, right? Like, does that actually, like, is it then therefore the case, or is there something that's external to human beings that actually makes that the case?
Well, I mean, I think we could say that it's external to humans in the sense that all life forms,
Moral
for the
principles
most
are
part,
external to
prefer
humans?
being alive, and that humans throughout our entire evolution, before we were even capable of speech, preferred life over death.
So the moral principle of life is better than death, which then constitutes the harm principle, is something that is external to human beings. Is that what you're saying?
It's developed through evolution, sure.
Developed through evolution, the thing that only determines survivability.
Well, we value survivability because people who value survivability tend to survive. And if you don't value your own life, you're just going to die and not reproduce. So in a sense, we could say nothing is objectively good or objectively bad. Ultimately, everything is subjective within morality because we're making judgments about actions.
Yeah. So then I guess in that case, like, because I'm trying to figure out like the overall whittled down principle down to the root. Are you then saying that evolution is the ultimate thing then that determines whether or not things are morally true or false?
Evolution ingrains an idea in our head. So evolution makes all
truth?
humans value life and pleasure and avoid suffering.
Evolution determines whether or not things are true or false, is what you're saying.
No,
I
that's
don't
not what
think
he
I
said.
That. I think
No,
evolution.
you're
But it
being
ingrains an
disingenuous right
idea.
now, Bryce.
He says that
No,
it
Bryce,
ingrained an idea
Yeah.
that
Right.
in our head that
you're being
determines whether or not
disingenuous,
these
Bryce.
things are the
You're being
case,
disingenuous.
right?
You're reframing what he said in a straw man fashion. So that's,
No, I'm not.
Let me
He
try
said
to
that
Yeah, you
there's
are.
an
That's what you
idea in
did.
his head. Try it again, Jed.
Evolution ingrains ideas in our head, like the promotion of survivability. It's true that we have the idea that survivability is good in our head because of evolution. But is it true that survivability is good? I would say that is a subjective assessment.
Okay, so so survivability is subjective then.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then
so
you're using
humans
so then
like
you have
surviving.
yeah. So then a subjective principle is the thing that determines harm?
Well, if you don't survive, you die. So then harm could play into that. If somebody harms you enough, then you could die and not survive. So then sure, we could say that it's objective that harm could cause a limitation to survival.
Yeah, but the principle itself that you're saying constitutes harm is something that's like it's survivability. But you said whether or not survivability is good is subjective. So then again, the principle that you're using to determine things as good or bad is a subjective principle itself, survivability. You admitted that yourself.
Yeah, ultimately, everything that we value is subjective.
So harm is subjective.
Well, harm isn't subjective, but the fact that
principles
we
for
don't
harm
like
are not?
harm is subjective.
So the principles for harm are subjective, but harm itself is not.
Right. Like it's a fact of reality that if
Can
I stab you in the face,
Go ahead,
it's going to
Wi-Fi.
it's going to cause you harm and be a detriment to your survival.
Is
But
there
it's subjective that I care about survival and limiting harm.
is there anybody who would actually hypothetically like to be stabbed in the face?
Maybe if you're getting some sort of surgery on your face and they have to stab a small portion of it to implant, I don't know, a plastic surgery into your face to give you a facelift or something. But in certain situations, we recognize that there's a risk reward factor. And then with consent, we can say, hey, if it's going to be better for my pleasure and well-being to have a small bit of harm that does me more good in the long run, then sure, we could say that's good. So it's situational.
So then that's
well,
not the harm
when
principle.
Well, when I get a second, there's something I want to correct about something that was said earlier, but I just putting that out there.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, well, Wi-Fi gospel seemed to indicate that maybe Christian ethics is where we get the idea of like using witnesses, like multiple witnesses and like court cases and stuff now. And that actually comes from ancient Mesopotamia. So like the Code of Hammurabi, not Christian ethics.
In the US, when we made it so that you had to have 2 or 3 witnesses to convict somebody, we went to the ancient Code of Hammurabi.
No. I'm saying that the ancient Code of Hammurabi is where it first appears, and so everything after that is dependent upon it. And I would also
That's a genetic
contend that
fallacy.
no, it's not a genetic fallacy. I'm just saying that's the origin of it. The Israelite community, the Israelite nation, when they were forming their laws, they formed their laws with the other laws around them in mind. And so they made laws that were similar to the Code of Hammurabi as well as other civilizations. And so basically their stuff was informed by ancient Mesopotamia. So it actually wasn't Christianity. It was the ancient Mesopotamia.
So that's an assumption that Christianity isn't true in order to make that argument.
No. The Code of Hammurabi comes well before the laws.
I don't think you understand what Wi-Fi is saying.
Where does Christianity say that those laws came from?
God.
Okay, so you have to assume that Christianity is lying. That claim is not true in order to make that.
Look at history.
I mean, this isn't a debate on whether or not Christianity is true. So
I actually have a question. Did God
come
to the ancient Mesopotamians first? Is that what he did? He went to the ancient Mesopotamians first and was like, fuck, they're not doing what I wanted. So I guess I'll pick the Israelites.
Were you a Christian before? I don't remember, John.
Yes, I was.
Okay. So you should understand the principle that the law of God is written on human hearts, correct?
No, I do not understand that. I understand that the Bible says that, but there are several different examples that I could bring up, like psychological conditions that would seem to nullify that particular idea.
I mean, if the law of God was actually written on our hearts, then we would all agree with each other on moral issues. But the fact that we disagree with each other means that God's law is not written on our hearts. Even Christians disagree with each other on everything.
Yeah, and we would never say that.
God's law being written on our hearts doesn't necessarily mean that everybody then therefore becomes a hive mind. Rather, our natural human nature is to do the things that God instills, and people have the free will to go against their own nature. It's not that.
Oh, you mean like stoning children?
Yeah, again, I already addressed that. I already addressed Matthew 15. By the way, so you can bring it back up if you want.
No.
I think it's only fair.
Hold on. You're attaching this whole sense of like it being written on our hearts and everything like that. If you believe that the God of the New Testament is the same God as the Old Testament, then your God is still culpable for all the bad shit that he did in the Old Testament. And if you want to say that he was only giving laws, because that's what the laws that the Israelites would take or would adhere to, that's totally bullshit too. He makes a lot of different laws in the Old Testament, like how to cut your beard, to put railings on top of your houses, what kind of foods to eat, what kind of clothes to wear. He does all those things, and he expects the Israelites to follow those rules. But yet, you guys want to deny it when God tells like mothers and fathers to kill their unruly children or to stone LGBTQ individuals, which was reaffirmed in the New Testament by Paul the Apostle.
No, it's very
Just
crazy
real
because
fast, guys. Let's make sure to tie this back into the topic, right? So just so that we
I
are
have-
staying on topic.
I feel like what I was bringing up definitely ties back into the topic just because of the fact that Christian ethics is, by definition, adhering itself to the God of both the New and the Old Testament. And I feel like that is very important to the divine command theory that's being presented by the opposition.
the first example of a society that we have that had Christian ethics from the top down was ancient Rome, right? I believe in somewhere around the 3rd century, Rome made Christianity the official religion, right? And from top down, there was Christian ethics. Not once do we have an instant of everybody gathering in the middle of the town to stone a child. Why? Because this is not part of Christian ethics.
But
they had all the
slavery
authority
would
to
be.
do it.
But
Okay,
slavery
but
would be.
neither of us have an issue with slavery. But before we get there, I'm totally down to go
No,
down to the
so you would
slavery
You
part.
enslave-
like slavery? You're on board with slavery?
You guys are
neither
on
of
board with it
us.
too.
Yeah.
No, I'm completely
No.
against slavery.
We don't-
Humanism
we already went
promotes
through this,
equality of everyone.
You already went through
Okay.
that with Wi-Fi Gospel, Jay.
But I have a very simple hypothetical for you guys. According to secular humanism, why would it be wrong if an old lady dies and she leaves in her will the ability for her grandchildren to sell her body, to rent out her body for sex, for a profit, so that they can make some money when she dies because she wasn't able to leave them much?
I have actually given this topic a little thought in the past. I think that if we were justified in calling that kind of situation immoral, it would be because the act would elicit negative emotions from her family that she leaves behind. So like if she
Okay.
has a loved one who would feel emotionally scarred or have trauma based on the idea of their mom or their grandma, being
Here's the
defiled like
problem
that, then
with
we
that.
could call it immoral in that sense. But
Ye-
in this specific example,
Can I just answer
would
that
say
real
it's
quick?
not necessarily immoral if she consents to it, so long as she's not
Okay.
spreading diseases or anything like that.
All right. So just to answer you, if my family is super religious and we find it disgusting that two men can kiss each other and have sex, if one of our family members decides to do that and it brings us great pain and we're all very upset by this disgusting act, would that then be immoral?
It's not disgusting though. So
That's a fair question, and I think I might
So if
even
the
backtrack
family
and just-
doesn't think it's disgusting, that's fine. Then it's fine.
I might just change my answer to your question about the grandma leaving her body to be used by other people. Say no, I've got no issues with that. If that's how she wants her body to be used, then she can go right ahead. And you can say, oh, that's icky, all you want, but there's lots of things that we find icky, like homosexuality, and that's between two consenting adults.
Yeah. So maybe talk to your grandmother and see what she can do. You can make some money doing that.
okay, this is
Now,
a
what
really
about
weird
a father and son
diverging-
marrying each
So,
other?
so
No, wait,
Wi-Fi
you wanted to
gospel,
test specific examples of our ethics, right?
How
But now it's
strong
wrong
is
when we
your
do it to
urge
you.
kill homosexuals right now.
The
I'm
the
just kinda
sa-
curious.
just as strong as your urge to go have sex with dead grandmothers,
I didn't make any kind of arguments concerning that. So
right? And neither did I.
Okay, well, I mean, your Bible says that you should.
And
kill
your
If God
worldview
wrote
says
his
that
morality
it's
on our hearts,
not
then you
immoral to
should
do so.
want to stone homosexuals to death because that's God's morality. And
Now, if-
nowhere in the New Testament does it ever say, okay, now homosexuality is okay. In fact, in Romans 1:27, it says gay sex is a shameful act and an error
It
worthy
is.
of penalty.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing.
And
The
the
death
penalty
penalty?
by God is death.
All right. So
Yes, but
There
yeah, they
are
die spiritually,
certain-
for sure.
And there are certain acts that are well deserving of the death penalty, and we can talk about that. But from
Like
your
picking up sticks.
standard, there's nothing wrong with the death penalty in secular humanism as long as it brings flourishing to a nation, which it very well could.
I
I'm
don't
generally
think-
against the death penalty because I typically don't think our confidence level can ever be high enough to convict the right person, given the fact that we've convicted the wrong person many, many, many times in the past.
Would you
and
hold that
also,
standard
I
for
would,
prison
I would,
as well?
Hold on. Hold on. Yeah, I think prison's
No, because
immoral, but-
prison's not finite, and you can
Prison's
still be
immoral?
exonerated after you're already in prison. But once you execute someone, it's over.
Well, right. I want to harken back to what we said about life being preferable to death. That would still be part of our framework. So, like, I'm against the death penalty. One, because yeah, we can't be certain, but also I value life over dead people. And
Well, then you would value prisons and keeping people out of prisons, because if not, then people like Irina Zarutsky get killed on a train because people think prison is immoral.
You can get
No,
killed
no,
in
no,
prison.
no,
In
no.
fact, you're probably more likely to get killed in prison than you are out here.
So should
Yeah,
we
well,
abolish
let me
prisons with that
clarify.
logic?
Let me clarify. I think our current prison system and our current way that we do things is immoral. I think that there are better ways that we can rehabilitate people, and I think that it's a real shitty thing for you to just bring up random, current, contemporary, topics into
In a
this
debate
discussion.
on ethics.
Well, at what point is that part of
Didn't you bring up a
Christian
bunch of
ethics?
situations of people doing terrible things
policies-
to their children to try to make a
That
point for
was
your case?
directly related to Christian
and
ethics.
this is
I don't
directly
see- I don't
related to
see how the
yours.
best-
It's a
how-
false
no,
notion
how-
of
You
Christian
said prisons
ethics.
are immoral. The policies that
Right.
let the man who killed Irina out of prison when he should have been in prison come from thinking like that.
No, see, my thinking is about reforming the prison system so that we actually rehabilitate people and not just let people out of prison or let people out without rehabilitation. So no, it's not actually representative of my position at all.
How should we rehabilitate child molesters? I'm just curious, like in your view. Like how
Chop
should
their
we do
balls
that?
off.
I'm not an expert in this particular area, so I don't know, but I
Well, 'cause
do
you said
know that
prisons are
there
immoral,
can be.
so-
Right. And I no. I said our current prison system is immoral. The way that we implement our prison system is immoral. So I would suggest some kind of rehabilitation thing, therapy, something along those lines.
And let them
So,
still live in
but-
society while they're having that therapy?
I'm not an expert in this. I wouldn't think that you would allow somebody in that particular situation to do it. But as far as
It's
I
called
understand,
prison.
since we're bringing up random fucking things from the contemporary space here, you've got several
Incoming Bible verse
high-profile
again.
people. No, we got several high-profile people in Washington D.C. that have been fucking kids for years, but yet the Republicans, they will not release the Epstein files. Why is that?
And what does that have to do with Christian ethics?
You guys are so
Right.
off topic, man. Every time.
It's
No, no,
also worth pointing out
just-
that
No,
there's
it's
tons
not
of
equivocal.
Catholic priests that go around molesting children as well. and-
Tons? Do you know the
Oh,
numbers?
yes.
yeah.
Do you know the
Oh,
numbers?
I could,
And-
I could,
Yeah,
I
is the
could
church
give you
is the
Okay.
church condoning people doing acts like that?
They're
I think
covering it
that
up
with
and moving them around, making
Is
it
Yeah,
are
I
easier
they?
for
think-
them.
Is it
with the
actually
reason-
condoned in the church? Just because there's other evil people covering up evil people, does that mean that the ethic itself is
The
is the law?
church is evil
I think-
all the way
I-
through. It's evil to its core.
Cool
Okay.
assumption.
Are
Again,
public
that wasn't my
schools evil
question.
to the core?
I think the pragmatic example of the Catholic Church regularly recirculating priests, even though they've offended, children, like they've sexually offended children,
Is wrong.
Just
It's wrong.
well, it's wrong, but it's also
It's
them.
not a Christian ethic. We can judge them for that. That's the cool thing about Christian ethics is that we have a.
Where does it
something
say
to
in the
point at.
Bible that doing that's wrong, by the way?
What, having
Right.
sex with children?
Yeah.
Have you heard of
I mean,
sexual
God
immorality?
himself does
Yeah,
that.
it's
God
considered
impregnates a
considered
14-year-old.
sexual immorality.
See,
God
this
raped
is what's
Mary.
insane. You guys claim to be Christians and you actually think that God physically had sex with Mary. You guys
Yeah,
obviously
no,
have
they
no
just-
idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, they
It's
just go
open to
straight into, like,
interpretation. You don't know if you don't know what
No,
Holy
it's not.
Ghost sex is like.
Well, again, this is why you should go to divine liturgy and stop relying on Bethel Church for your interpretations.
That's
I'm
another
not
thing,
relying
how
on
do we know
any
whose
particular
interpretation is right? Everyone has a different interpretation
Man,
because
this
the
would be a
Bible's
great-
so unclear.
It is-
Well, this is why we have a
so
normative
Wi-Fi.
authority, like a church.
Wi-Fi is forceful impregnation of a child wrong?
Forceful impregnation implies physical, right?
Is forceful impregnation of a child?
I'm
wrong?
asking a
That
clarifying
clarified
question.
question was valid, man.
Are you implying physically?
I don't care if it happens physically, magically. I don't care if David Caruso snaps his fingers and automatically impregnates a person.
Yeah.
Is forceful impregnation of a child wrong?
Either way, yes.
Okay, then why did God do it?
He didn't. He actually
did.
did. Do you know when the angel Gabriel went to Mary? Was she pregnant when the
Yes.
angel Gabriel went to her?
No.
Oh, wow. It's almost like he asked her for consent.
He didn't ask
No,
her
he
for
didn't.
consent. He said this will happen to you.
Yeah. And what did she say?
Post hoc rationalization of an act done to you. is
so
not
what did Mary say?
internal or external critique
y'all
are
have
exactly the
y'all
same.
have a
What did
really
Mary
fucked up
say?
sense of consent, and this is another thing that plays into Christian
No.
ethics
They're
as
not
to
gonna
why
address
it's
it because she
bad.
Are you
literally
doing an
contradicts
internal or
certain
external
verse.
critique here? It matters very much so. So
No,
Well,
I
suppose
mean,
both,
I
I can address
Christianity
both.
internally is full of contradictions and inconsistencies, and then
goodness. Here we go
externally,
again.
it's demonstrably horrible for society. So both.
I really want to say something. I want to go back to the Catholic Church thing. You said
Okay.
that the church is evil to its core. Jed said this.
Yeah.
Are you saying that because of that instance, or does that instance is that instance evidence of it?
That instance is evidence of it, but there's other reasons why it's evil to its core as well. Yeah,
So
for
then,
example,
would
the
public
sale of-
schools be also evil to its core based on the same evidence?
You asked about elementary schools,
No, public schools in general.
public schools. I'd say no, because once a teacher is found out and recognized, then the school fires them and brings charges against them. But the
Every
Catholic
time?
Church, as far as I know,
There's never been a
They should.
cover up of sexual immorality or molestation in a public school.
if there has been, then I would denounce that particular
Ah,
school, and I would
in
say
the same
this school.
with Catholic Church.
But the Catholic
No,
Church
no,
is
no,
one
no.
organization. That's the
Right,
difference.
And
And
public
it's
schools
evil
aren't
all
one
the way up
organization.
to
And
the Pope.
hold on. Another big difference here is that it's a systemic thing in the Catholic organization, and
In
it's
public school as well.
systemically. No, it's not systemic in public school.
Do you know how many kids
those would
arrested
be
in public school?
those would
Way
be
more than the
I-
Catholic Church.
Compared to the Catholic
No.
Church,
There's also way
No, no,
more
no.
public
So I know
schools than
that.
there are
No,
Catholic
hold
churches.
on.
Even
I beg to
So
differ. I beg to differ.
The study that you're referencing actually plays with the definition of the sexual assault or what's counted there. When we're talking about the Catholic Church, we're talking about actual sexual assaults that are done on children, and as far as like molestation and rapes. Whereas the study that discusses the public school stuff is widened it to just inappropriate activity, which could
Oh.
literally mean almost anything. So you're including a whole bunch of cases there that just are not comparable to the Catholic Church stuff. But my point still
study was I
stands.
cited?
that the Catholic
which
Church,
study did he reference that's only inappropriate activity? I didn't remember that. Maybe I'm a mic.
no. So I mean, I'm just referencing.
You made
the
a
one
claim.
study that. Right, I know, and I can bring up that study for you if you want me to. But what I'm saying is that the one study that I've seen about it does that criteria swap up to make public schools look worse than the Catholic Church, but in fact, it's not. That's all I'm saying.
And who
Very
ran
well.
that study? I'm just curious.
I mean, I'm not sure. I can look up my notes real quick.
And while you're doing that, Starch Manning has a comment. In my opinion, the real problem is Christians abandoning their own ethics and hiding behind and supporting partisan power structures. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Partisan power structures. Are you talking about like just in general, like just political structure? Like, what do you mean by that? Partisan power structures.
If
I'm
they put a
confused.
clarification, I'll put it on the screen.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause I was about to say, like, he's saying partisan power.
How much
structures,
time
like,
do we have left?
Is he talking about like democratic values or something? Because like,
41 minutes.
because the vast majority of democratic societies that arose were because of Christian ethics. I mean, if that's
I think what
the route
I
you
would
wanna
say
take.
in response to that is that most Christians abandon Christian ethics and then actually use secular ethics. So, we're pretty much everything in the Bible, you can just disregard and say, oh, that's just old covenant theology. We don't need to worry about that anymore. We actually care about well-being now because God wrote it on our hearts to care about well-being, where in reality,
Yeah.
you're
What
actually
does the
just
word
appealing
secular
to
mean?
secular humanism.
What does the word secular mean?
Free from any in particular religion.
Okay. So how can somebody be a Christian and abandon their Christian ethics and use secular ethics?
Easily. I mean, how can a Christian abandon listening to Christian music and listen to secular music? Christians
no,
don't
that's-
actually care about what the Bible
That's
says.
a category error because we don't believe that like like secularism in of itself can ground ethics in of itself. There could be
Yeah.
secular music that promotes evil things. That's a
So
category
in
error.
order to be a Christian, right, you have to be a part of a church, right? And being a part of this
I've
church,
never heard that before.
you've never heard of Christ's church?
I've heard many people say, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church. I just have
Even-
a relationship with God. In
Yes,
fact, I
well-
would argue that most Christians argue it doesn't matter if you go to church or which church you go to. It's all
Well,
about
the
your
argument-
personal relationship
The
with
argument
Jesus.
that I'm making is that
Even
if
in
you're a
US.
Christian and you have ethics that have nothing to do with God, then you're not a Christian. But here's the thing.
then
What
there's
these
no
these
Christian.
ethics that have nothing to do with God, secular ethics, you can't actually give us an ethic that has anything to do with not believing in God.
Well, sure, because atheism itself doesn't lead to any particular ethics.
So secular ethics doesn't exist.
Well, no, secular just means it's apart from any particular religion.
What? Name one secular ethic.
Well, let's see. How about the value of human life?
Okay,
Oh,
so
we
if
don't have
somebody
that?
believes, ready? If somebody's a Christian and they believe in the value of human life, does that mean they're believing in secular ethics?
Well, you could say that that's a value shared by both Christian and secular ethics.
Okay, now give me a value within secular ethics that can only be held by a secular humanist.
Well, I think the way that question is phrased, let me see if I can answer what you're really asking. Someone could be anti-slavery, which is a secular ethic, but they didn't get that from Christianity because Christianity supports slavery.
Okay, so someone who's a Christian cannot be anti-slavery.
They can, but they're relying on secular ethics and denouncing Christian ethics or
Okay,
denying it.
So any religious person who holds the same thing, they're holding to secular ethics,
Yeah, on that particular topic.
even
Yes.
if their religion doesn't support slavery.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Christianity, not some other
Yes,
religion.
no, I'm
like
just saying
Jainism.
that this thing that you're saying that's only a secular humanist ethic is not actually only a
No,
humanist.
I mean Jainism is, as far as I know, anti-slavery as well.
Okay, so then you can't give us one ethic that is purely secular humanist.
I think
I
that-
think I think the secular humanists would just be devoid of any call out to God or basis in God. It would be just absent of religion in general.
So subjective.
So if I defined Christian ethics,
I would say that Christian ethics is just as subjective as secular humanist ethics.
so thank you. So Christian ethics is subjective. I subjectively define Christian ethics as all the same things that you hold to as a secular humanist. Am I now a secular humanist?
yes.
How? I just defined subjectively Christian ethics in the same way that you describe secular humanism. I hold to the same things.
Well,
but
you're
I define it
divorcing
as
yourself from what the Bible actually says.
right
But
because it's
that's- but
subjective, like
it's
Godless
subjective,
Engineer
who
just
cares?
said.
Sure. Well, do you have any authority on what Christianity actually is? Do you just make
That-
it up as you
I'm
go?
just showing that
So
if
there is an authority.
In Christianity, that's my presumption is that
all right,
your
so then why are
authority
you
is your
saying it's
Bible.
subjective?
Well, so hold on. I'm saying that it's subjective because you're subjectively choosing God's standard there.
That's not
just
what
like
subjectively means.
I'm subjectively choosing secular humanism. I'm saying that both stances of ours is subjective. You can laugh all you want to,
No,
like an idiot there, Bryce, but
That's
I
not
know
meta
what's
ethics,
subjective.
by the way.
Yeah.
The
I-
subjectivity and objectivity and meta ethics has nothing to do with whether or not I subjectively choose to do something.
Right, so
Subjective
what
in
I'm saying
meta
is
ethics
that
defines as that
transcendent-
it stands dependent on a human
I'm-
mind.
Right,
Objective
and I'm
means that
saying
it stands independent of a human mind. We believe that God exists, therefore our belief is that because everything is from God's nature, it is stance independent of human mind.
right. He
So
has
it's
a
not
stance
subjective.
a stance dependent
He doesn't have
position
stances.
on it. I have a stance dependent position. My stance dependent position is secular humanism.
But here's what I'm saying, John.
This
Yes,
seems
so
like
you're
this would be
saying-
a good spot to jump in with the clarification from the audience member.
Go
They
ahead.
said Christian ethics at their best are beautiful, love, mercy, justice. But what we're seeing in defense of Charlie Kirk isn't Christian ethics. It's partisan tribalism dressed up in faith. I don't know how much y'all want to touch on that specific topic, though.
And it sucks. It sucks that he died, but I'm not really sure what they mean by defensive Charlie Kirk. Like,
Yeah. Honestly,
The
you think
the whitewashing of Charlie Kirk's history and bigotry.
Yeah, if you think
Whitewashing?
Charlie Kirk was bad, you have no
Charlie
fucking
Kirk
clue
was
what's
a
coming.
racist,
No clue.
sexist, fascist, homophobic, transphobe.
When you call Charlie
was a
Kirk those
horrible
things,
person.
Did he harm
the
people?
words are void of meaning. So when someone who's actually a racist, fascist, sexist Nazi comes along, you're gonna not think anything different than Charlie Kirk. Really? That's insane.
Because he
No,
was the
Charlie Kirk-
I never
was
met
Charlie
him.
bad? Was Charlie bad because he committed harm? Is that what makes him bad? Did he harm
think
people?
that
I
he
would say
spread
he was
harmful
bad because
ideas.
he spread
Okay.
toxic ideas.
So speech can be harmful.
I didn't say that. I said he was bad because
So
he
why is it
spread
bad then
toxic
if it's not
ideas.
harmful?
Well, the ideas that he's spreading could encourage people to commit harm to others.
So is the speech harm?
The speech itself isn't harm, but he's encouraging harm.
Okay, so he's encouraging harm
So,
with
like, for
non-harmful
example,
speech.
Charlie Kirk said if any doctor gives trans-affirming care to an individual, they should be publicly executed. So he's calling for the harm of others. So the speech itself isn't necessarily causing anyone harm, but he's encouraging harm with his speech.
That's I have no idea like when he said that. So Wi-Fi, you looked like you wanted to say something against that, but
Well, I'm just saying that if somebody
if he says that, that's terrible. I mean,
If
like,
somebody-
Good, I'm
I didn't
glad you
watch,
agree.
I didn't watch him, so
I think that somebody who chops off another man's penis and calls that affirming care probably should be publicly executed. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ,
Wow.
you're a shitty fucking human being. You know that, Wi-Fi? I
And you
never
would fuck a
realized
dead
how
grandmother
shitty-
for money.
I did not make that
Oh, you
argument.
just wouldn't condemn
Neither of us
anybody
said
for
we
that.
would do that.
Mutilating
We
another
said we
man
have
is
no
just-
you just wouldn't
necessarily
condemn
issue with
anybody
someone else
for
doing
it.
it.
mutilating
'Cause
another man is
ev-
pretty evil, unless obviously they
Only
consent
if
to
they don't
mutilation.
want it. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah, and-
mutilating someone against their consent, then it's immoral. But if
the
you're
there's
emotional
there's
outburst
the same, there's the
is
same.
wild.
I love that.
Bigoted
I
pieces
love
of
that.
shit.
I love that, Jed. I love
Coming
that,
from the
Jed.
people
Christians
who
say
don't
the
care
same
about
applaud the
thing.
murder of
consent.
children
That's the whole
in the
thing.
millions.
Jed, would
Christianity
you say the
doesn't care
same
about
thing?
consent one bit.
I will.
Jed,
I will
would you say
never
the
be
same
on
thing
screen with
about
either
people's
Wi-Fi or
arms
Bryce ever
or
again.
legs?
Yeah,
Would you say
virtue
the same thing
signals
about
somewhere.
arms and eggs?
If-
Clutch your
if you-
pearls.
if
This is
someone
coming
goes
from the
to
same dude who
doctor-
won't debate on anybody
Jed,
anybody
go ahead,
else's
Jed.
platform.
I'm
because
actually
he gets his
really
feelings
enjoying
hurt.
talking to Jed. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. To answer Bryce's question, would I be morally opposed to someone going to a doctor and asking them, could you remove my arm, please? I don't think the
my arm's
doctor should
noise.
get in trouble for removing the arm, but I think maybe the doctor should encourage them or, ask some questions like, why? Is there something wrong with your arm? Do you not want it anymore?
Like, no.
What's the reason?
I feel like that I should be a cripple now. I feel like that I should remove both of my legs. I want to be part of the disabled.
If you really want to do that, then I don't think the doctor should be executed for helping you achieve your goal.
So you're
Because
able to
by
become
helping you with that
just
goal,
disabled if you just wanted to, right?
if you wanted to be disabled, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to. But like I said, I think
Is there any reason a doctor should get in trouble for doing something that a patient is willing to do?
Can you give another example? I mean, I don't know. My gut reaction tells me no, but I mean,
Yeah,
if
I
you have
want
another
to.
example.
I want to get jacked. I'm tired of being fat. Okay, I'm trying all these different diets, and I want 1,000 milligrams of testosterone straight to my butt cheek every week. I just want to get yoked. Can I go to a doctor? Should that be legal? Should I be able to do
so
that?
certain amounts of testosterone could actually cause you extreme amounts of harm. So I
Yeah.
think any good doctor should say, hey, I'm happy to help you achieve this goal in a healthy way, but we're going to lower the dosage and, ramp it up gradually so that you can achieve your goal and not die.
But cutting off my penis doesn't cause me any future harm. Gotcha.
And real fast, let's make sure both sides are tying these back into the actual topic at hand. And Nobody on Fire also had, I guess, a clarification from your prior discussion on objective versus subjective stance, independent of any mind. Subject to God is still subjective.
Yeah, that's untrue because God doesn't have stances. His nature is actually the complete embodiment of that stance in of itself. So he does not possess stances. That's like metaphysics 101 with God. I know that Godless engineer's laughing, but I know he's not going to step into the philo field with me on that right now if he wants to.
And I just want to point out, Wi-Fi has
No, I mean the
based on
Bible is full of
morality.
stances. God has stances on everything. God
No,
has stances.
It's a representation of God being the embodiment of stance. It's not literally he doesn't
So then,
possess
does that
stances
mean
in a
stance
metaphysical sense.
changes over time? Because God changes his
No.
mind on things over time. He used to want us to stone children to death, and then he changed his mind. Evidently,
That doesn't mean that he
So-
actually changed his mind. It means that he changed the rules based off of his nature. It changes the rules for people. That doesn't mean that his stance changes, and he doesn't even possess a stance that is external to it. Because to possess a
So
stance
God's
on
not
something,
immutable.
that means that. How did you get that from what I just said, Godless engineer? I want you to
because you
explain
said-
how you got that from what I said.
Yeah, because you said that God changes depending on the people. That
I didn't
he's
say.
talking to.
I literally said
God changes
God
the
himself
rules.
does not change. I said that he changes rules for people, meaning that add extra to himself, external.
So
to
he's
himself.
limited,
How does that make him limited? Please go ahead.
right? So he's limited to the people that he's talking to. That's what you said.
He's limited to the people he's talking to. How did you
If
get
stoning
that from,
children
how
is
did you get
bad,
that
why
from
would
what I
God
just said?
ever tell people to do it?
What do you mean?
Like, presumably you think it's bad to stone children.
30
and
minutes?
Maybe Jesus agreed, but God, Yahweh in the Old Testament said, go ahead and stone unruly children. So did it used to be moral to stone children and now it's not? I mean, what changed?
It's not that it's morally, or it's not that it's moral or immoral in certain periods of time. What it is that God instantiates certain rules for certain societies based off of how they act and the world that's around them in that time period.
Right.
So again,
so he's
whether or
limited
not he
to
gives something to somebody,
he's
if
limited.
he says, "Hey, yo, this thing will have to be okay in your society because you cannot basically survive without these things that kind of suck." Like, for example, they already were doing things like slavery before God instilled the laws of Moses.
Why didn't
Where-
God
where-
just ban
where in the
slavery
Bible?
right from the beginning? God could have
Because
just
nobody-
told
Because he
Adam
wouldn't have
in the
listened
Garden
to
of
him,
Eden, don't
because it
own
was common
slaves
tradition
ever.
in the ancient world. It was common tradition in the ancient world, and so
God let
people
it
would
get
have
that way in the
simply ignored-
first place. That's God's fault. God should have
So
told
God's
Adam
not
and
on
Eve,
Yes,
don't own people as property.
God
Pass
needs
that
to step
law
in every
on
5
for every
seconds and
generation.
tell people and wag his finger at every human being every second of the day. Yeah. To say,
Well, that's
"Don't
what
do
he
this."
did in the Old Testament. A guy touches
Yeah, he
the
did, and
Ark
you
of the
guys judge
Covenant,
it.
and
You
God
guys judge every
slaughters him.
section where he does it. So I mean, whether or not he stopped it or not doesn't matter.
So Bryce, why is it okay for God to mandate little things like how you should cut your beard or what kind of fabrics should make up your clothing,
Mhm.
but he can't say don't own slaves?
Well, I mean, in terms of like the Levitical laws, like the way that you were supposed to be dressed and the way that you had to mandate yourself physically, these weren't moral laws. These were simply just disciplinary laws that were for those people at that time. That's not moral. It's simply just a law that was given basically to cause somebody to have discipline. Same thing with like if you're in the military, it's not immoral or immoral because the military causes you to shave your head when you're at basic training. They're not doing it as a moral reason. They're doing it as just a disciplinary reason and a health reason.
Is
So all
slavery
of that thing
moral, or
applies to these different types of things.
is slavery a moral
But-
issue?
I would say that it's a moral issue if it's done incorrectly.
Oh, there's a
If it's
correct way
done
to own slaves.
incorrectly.
Yeah.
Now, I think I know the correct way to own slaves according to Christianity. It's that you can buy them from other nations, own them forever, beat them with a rod as long as they don't die within 2 days.
So in the
Yeah,
last
there was-
2,000
rough
years,
things in that
how has Christian ethics
ancient
dealt
world
with
was
slavery?
crazy, man.
That was God's command. That wasn't how the world was.
And-
that was how
yeah,
God
What'd you say-
wants
what'd you
the
say
In the
world
last
to
in the
be.
last 2,000 years, how has Christian ethics dealt with slavery?
It's evolved over
affirmed it.
time. It's adopted secular ethics. Christians have said, "Hey, you know this crap from the Bible about slavery is actually pretty bad. Maybe we should go ahead and ban slavery." So
Are the
Christians
secular
are actually
ethics in the room with us?
abandoning Christianity.
So they banned.
I do want
Hold
to
on,
point out.
Jed
hold on,
just
Wi-Fi.
made a claim.
Well, I do want to specify that the stance of Christians being an abolitionist is only a fairly recent development. For the majority of Christian history, it's been affirmative in being able to hold slaves. Just wanted
Yeah.
to add that in.
So,
Now
so
you
what
can address
was the abolishment of slavery had to do with then?
People wanting freedom from slavery because they
Okay.
recognize that people should be free and not
And what
subject
kind
to
of
ownership.
system of slavery was in place when the abolitionists came about?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What system of slavery was in place when the abolitionists came about?
Antebellum slavery?
Right. Okay. So what was that slavery based on? How could you own a slave? What were the requirements to own a slave?
It's based on the Bible.
I'm no expert on antebellum slavery,
yeah?
but my understanding is that it was pretty
Hold
similar
on.
to Christianity, with the only difference being if you beat your slave to death, there's no punishment. So it's a little bit harsher.
So can you show me in the Bible where it says that in order to own a slave, they have to be black or a different type of race than
But
the
it doesn't
white?
say they
Come
have to
from
be
the
black.
nations
It says
around
you
you.
can buy them from
Hold
nations
on.
around
Coming
you.
from
And that's
another
exactly
nation
What was
is
the
not
US
question?
did.
race, by the
What was
way.
the
The
question? I
U.S.
asked?
bought slaves from other nations and then owned
Okay,
them for
and if-
life, passed them on to their children.
Yeah, and if a white guy came from another nation, could they make him a slave?
In the ancient world, yes.
No.
In
In-
antebellum,
That wasn't what he
Oh.
asked.
well, no, I understand that. I was in the middle of like.
Neither of us
speaking and
ever made
shit.
the claim that antebellum slavery is exactly the same as Christian
You said it was
slavery.
based. He literally just said it was based on the Bible.
It is based on the Bible. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't mean it's
Okay.
exactly the
All
same.
right.
The laws on the books in the South at that time governing slavery were inspired by the Bible, and all you have to do is read the laws.
And the
in order to-
abolitionist movement was inspired by who again? Because you admitted it.
Uh,
earlier, but go ahead.
Yeah,
It-
Christians
it was-
were responsible for the abolition, but they did not use the Bible. They used secular ethics.
And
Oh,
can
they-
Right. It was the
Uh-huh.
abolitionists were actually
What makes it secular
deviating
ethics?
from. Hold on. So the Christians in the abolitionist movement were deviating from the established Christian interpretation. So they were essentially creating their own interpretation of the material in order to be abolitionists, which means that they obviously were driven by secular forces rather than, God forces.
The
Okay,
secular forces of the 1800s in America. Because everybody was just a secularist in America in the 1800s.
It's not what I said.
They didn't realize they were, but yeah, they were being influenced by secular ethics because
Yeah.
the Bible certainly makes no
the
indication
secular
that slavery is
deistic
wrong.
God or something like.
Fair
who
enough.
is
You
it? Like,
guys
where is
don't
the influence
realize
coming from.
You guys
No,
don't
Bible
realize
makes
they're
no
suppressing the truth and
indication that
unrighteousness.
slavery
No,
is
no,
I get
wrong
it was their
whatsoever.
personal.
Where were
It
they
was
getting
their
that from?
personal. It was their personal opinions that drove their reinterpretation of the scripture to be abolitionists. So that's what we mean by secular, is just that it was absent of any kind of like God belief in the Bible. It's just that was their motivating factor. They didn't like slavery, so they reinterpreted their scriptures in order to be abolitionists.
If they didn't like slavery, then why the 13th Amendment?
It still has slavery in it. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So it wasn't the fact that, just slavery is just wrong all across the board, which you say it is inconsistent with
make
your own
that.
worldview. But secondly,
Why
No,
is
it's not
inconsistent
inconsistent.
with our
so
worldview?
slavery isn't wrong across the board?
I think
I think-
slavery is wrong across the board. Are you going to bring up
So
prison
why would you
systems again?
correct me on that if that was your answer? I didn't say that. Okay, do you believe it? Yeah.
I don't
Slimy,
even know what you're
slimy.
fucking talking. No,
Yeah.
You know what slimy is?
What that
is
you
what
that you
said
want to
about the
kill
trans
babies in the
community
womb?
earlier.
That you want to kill babies
No,
in the womb by the
they're not
million?
babies.
That's slimy.
By
I will
you
never be
calling
on
them
another panel with
babies,
you
you're
again
using a
because
appeal to emotion.
you
Wi-Fi
kill
is
human
crashing out.
beings in the
Wi-Fi is
womb by the
crashing out.
millions. You affirm it. So I'll never be on another panel.
You're
No, it's funny
crashing out.
because
You're
I'm
crashing
doing
out.
what you did to show you how ridiculous your virtue signaling is. And you're
No,
calling it a
I'm
crash
not
out.
virtue
That's
signaling.
also
That's just
proves
my
my point.
personal thing.
Here's a
I
question.
don't
What
share
justification
screens
do
with,
you guys have for calling slavery immoral?
Nobody here is saying slavery is immoral. You cannot say that
We're
consistently
saying
with your
slavery is
own immoral.
immoral.
Yeah. And yet you want to rehabilitate people against their will.
No, I mean, I think rehabilitation to take part in a society is necessary. That's not the same
Against
thing
their
as
will.
slavery.
Would you put them in a certain place and restrict their movement?
If
Prison
they,
is
no,
not the
if,
same as slavery, and for you
Yes,
to
it is.
suggest that they're identical is being
Okay,
disingenuous.
give me the difference.
With prison, you commit a crime, so you do something
what's
that's
the punishment?
against the law, and then people put you in a place where you
Of
can't play with
slavery.
others. With slavery, you don't need to do anything wrong. You're just property, and people buy you and use you as farming equipment.
Okay, so you don't
Right.
need to do anything wrong. So
define
if
what
somebody, hold
slavery-
on, no. If
Wi-Fi,
somebody
what-
commits a
define
crime and is
slavery.
put
I
into
think we're getting
slavery,
lost in
then they're not in
definitions.
slavery.
What's your definition of slavery here?
Well, I would consider slavery, it's a tough definition, but I would say there are a few requirements. One of those requirements would be to restrict movement against your will, to profit off of this restriction of movement in an economic sense, and to be so heavily limited in your freedoms that you can't do basic things like choose your own path in life.
Yeah, I think our modern prison system has a lot of problems. I don't like how it uses people for slave labor. I think that's bad. I don't like
Okay.
how prisons are for profit. I think that's bad. So I'm not a big fan of prisons. So I don't know what the big
Any
issue
system
here
you
is.
purport in replacement of slavery would still meet all of the things I just said.
What would
Yeah,
you
but
do
you-
instead of a prison?
That was the example I
How would-
gave earlier.
No,
like
I
when
would
Godless
I
said
would
that
enslave people in a
you would
prison
rehabilitate
system.
a molester, for example.
I would do what we currently do in America.
You wouldn't change a thing.
Well, no,
With
there are
prison
certain
systems.
things that I would change. Like, for example,
The safety of it.
people in prisons can't have families. Guess what? In biblical slavery, you could actually have a family.
Yeah, and what happened
Yeah.
to your family after it was your time to go free? The master gets to keep the family, and if you ever want
Or-
to see them again, then you have to commit to being a slave for life.
Yeah, so it sounds like a choice, right? So what do you do instead?
A
You say
choice,
no
yeah,
family
be
for
free
you.
and never see your family
Okay, what's
again,
better,
or
the
remain a
possibility
slave.
of having a family or the possibility of not having a family? What's better?
The possibility of having a family or not the possibility
Yeah, or not having that possibility. What's better?
depends on the situation.
Exactly.
I mean,
So it's up to the
people
choice.
in prison still have families, but also key characteristics.
How do you
for a
maintain a
definition of
family in
slavery.
prison?
I mean, you still have a family if you go
Oh
to
yeah,
prison.
you
I
can
don't-
see them
repeated
once
the-
a week and talk to them on the phone. That's how you maintain a family in prison.
So you're saying
I don't know
slavery
what
is
you mean by
good because you
maintaining.
can have a family as a slave.
Yeah, because you guys think that you can just
one of
abandon
the things that would
children
be
and kill them
better
in the
than
womb,
the
and
current
and
American
then you would
prison
still
system.
have a family.
Wouldn't it
Okay,
be better
hold
just to
on.
not make people slaves against their will and
Yeah,
then have
people
them
shouldn't-
let them have a family outside of being your slave?
Wait, so again, making people slaves against their will is wrong in all situations?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so
I
then
would-
again, you're stuck in a performative contradiction because you want some prison or rehabilitation system that makes people slaves.
I don't want prison to be slavery. I don't think people
You
should be
can't-
forced to do work in prison against their
That's
will.
not what
So-
slavery is.
Okay, let me
If-
put it like this. Let me try this Wi-Fi. 'Kay, you're saying that you don't want people to basically be put against their will, right? Is that I don't want to straw man you, Jed.
Well, one thing we have to consider is that if someone breaks the law, we have to do something
Mhm.
about that. If someone's going around murdering everybody,
What should we
can't
do?
just let them run around murdering everybody. We have to separate them from society.
Yeah, what should we do?
Well, as much as I'm not a fan of prison, if someone is a danger
Slavery?
to everyone around them, we should lock them up and put them in
Okay.
jail. But I don't think
And
Separate them
economically
away.
benefit
Separate
off
them
them.
away. Yeah, and
Right,
economically.
but what Jed is saying here is not definitionally slavery. So
So
key
then stop
characteristics
saying
of
all slavery is bad.
Let me finish. So key characteristics of slavery are ownership. Slaves are legally recognized as property rather than a person with rights. Inmates are still considered people, and they definitely have rights. Coerced labor and
Hold on, one point at a time. One point at a time.
Okay, guys, let's make sure that we're tying all this back
Well,
into
there-
the overall topic. And there's also a super chat actually in regards to this from Nobody on Fire. They said Leviticus 25 to 39 to 46, and its two-tier system was used to naturalize and justify the different treatment of white indentured slaves and African chattel slaves.
Okay, and so
There you go, buds.
just
And if
because-
you'd like, I can even read that verse or those verses for you.
Host,
it's
do you
not-
mind? Do you
Hold
mind
on.
if I host? Do you mind to just real quick before gospel goes on, if I can address Leviticus 25 real quick? Because that specific section, right? That was what they used to try to justify being able to indenture the African Americans. What they don't realize is that the people that use that as a justification are actually incorrect towards the interpretation of Leviticus 25, because Leviticus 25, when it talks about the difference between chattel slavery, is anybody who is just not from Israel. It has nothing to do in any sense with whether or not they had a certain skin color or whether or not they had anything of that kind, as well as the nations that were selling the slaves to the Israelites. They were people that were indentured servants of those nations, and then they were given to the Israelites as chattel slavery. But then they always still had their rights. And I would honestly say that even those chattel slaves had actually more rights sometimes than a lot of the American prison systems that we have today.
So,
No, there's-
so
I
with
agree.
this, usually on the channel
They're
during
all lies.
bloodbaths,
Yeah.
we do read these out. But this is a little bit different situation. Would you like these verses read, or it's up
I
to y'all?
understand. I was about to say, I know what the verse is referencing. So it's all
Okay.
good.
Yeah, these are the ones that say you can buy slaves from the nations around you, keep them forever, and pass them on to your children, and because they're your money. So,
So
it
I-
regards human beings as property and money, which you can buy from
The
other
same
nations.
thing like the
Yeah,
inmates
And no
in the
one's
prison
claiming
system.
that. No one's claiming that because slavery in the Bible wasn't race based, so it's different than modern slavery. Yeah, okay, no one's arguing otherwise.
You guys literally said that antebellum slavery, was the same as biblical slavery.
It's inspired by it, but we didn't say it's the exact
Okay.
same
All right.
thing.
Anyway, here's the whole point, because we should move on. We've been on this topic for a long time. You guys say slavery is immoral. The Bible supports, or Christian ethics support slavery. Therefore, Christian ethics is bad for society. The problem is when you say slavery is immoral, it's a universal statement. And we've showed over and over again that universal statement is inconsistent with any moral theory, especially secular humanism that you want to purport.
How?
Because within secular humanism, is there punishment for crimes?
I mean, I can try to look up what the Secular Humanist Manifesto says, but I mean, for me personally, I think that there would be punishment for crimes.
And some of those punishments would include some form of slavery. So you cannot make a universal statement that slavery is
No,
immoral.
I disagree. I think that there
can-
can be punishments without slavery.
What
think
is the
prison
punishment
and
that would be
slavery are
good for a
fundamentally
child
different.
molester? I'm still waiting for that.
As I stated before, you
don't know?
dickbag,
That you don't know.
I am not an expert, but I think that there definitely are ways that we can rehabilitate those individuals in
Name one.
some kind of way.
That isn't
I don't
slavery.
have to name one.
But you
That
know it's not
isn't
prison though,
slavery.
right?
Okay.
You know it's not prison though, right?
And you know it's
See,
not slavery.
What Wi-Fi wants to do is he wants to definitionally drill slavery down to be the most broad definition out there so that he can attach it to any particular form
Okay.
of a limitation to one's autonomy in this
What's your
particular
definition
respect.
then? You want to
in
stay on this
order-
topic? What's your definition?
Right. I was trying to give a definition, but
Go ahead.
you didn't want me to. You wanted to go.
No, I can
line
show
by
you why
line
your
on it.
definition is wrong very easily because I can
Okay,
show
key
you a person.
characteristics. Ownership. Slaves are legally recognized as property rather than persons with rights. Coerced slavery. Enslaved
Does that
people are
mean they don't
forced to
have
work
rights?
under a threat of violence, punishment, or other forms of coercion. Lack of autonomy. Slaves have no freedom to make personal, economic, or legal decisions. Heritability. In many slave systems, enslaved status passes from parent to child. Dehumanization. Slavery involves the systemic denial of human dignity and basic rights.
Okay, so then the people who were enslaved under the antebellum slavery were not slaves.
No, they were. They had no
did they
freedom
have
to make
rights?
personal, economic, legal decisions.
Did they have rights?
No, no. I mean,
They had no
did-
rights. There were no laws protecting slaves in antebellum slavery.
You could kill your slave and there was no punishment for the master.
Absolutely
in the
not. Are
antebellum.
you
That's
kidding
a
me?
lie. That's a lie.
You need to go do some research, brother.
Oh, well, Bryce, you lied earlier about Leviticus 25, 44, and
Whoa.
46. so-
Listen,
No, I didn't.
answer my question.
They
Did the
did.
slaves
Good
have
God showed
rights? Yes
him
or
the
no?
lie that he made.
You could just kill slaves willy-nilly and there was no repercussions. That was
If a-
law of the
well, I
land.
think the way that the slave code is written is that if a slave accidentally dies while you're beating them, then there's no
This
punishment.
is we're talking about antebellum slavery because
Right.
Godless Engineer gave a definition of slavery. And I told him the reason that I was going to be able to show that his definition of slavery was wrong was because I can show people who match his description who he would or who wouldn't match his description who he would call slaves, which I'm doing right now. The people in antebellum slavery, you said they had no rights. That is a lie.
I think
No,
I
it's
might
not a
amend
lie.
that to say slaves have far fewer rights. Like they're
Minimal
not
right-
free,
minim-
they're being
minimal
owned
right.
by
Okay,
other
so then-
people,
so
they're
then
being
that's not
forced to do
Godless
work against their
Engineers?
will.
That's not
When,
Godless
when we're
Engineer's
making these
definition.
points, let's once again try to tie these back into the overall topic.
I wanted to move on. But
And Starch Manning has a kind of related response. Christian ethic of love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:39. Slavery, segregation, and redlining are the opposite of love.
Mhm.
They're exploitation and exclusion. Thank you for the super
Yeah,
chat.
that's a great example of a contradiction in Christian ethics, how we're supposed to love our neighbor,
Or
but
maybe
then in the
somebody
same
was just
token,
wrong.
it's okay to enslave your neighbor.
is there
Or maybe
anything that
somebody
you
was
can
just
do?
incorrect.
Yeah, is there anything that you can do that is harmful to another person that would actually be love?
I don't know. Can you give an example? Like owning them as property and beating them? I would say that's not love.
Okay, well, I would say that or putting someone into prison for a crime they commit is an act of love. One, to the person who the victim is.
It's
For
not
getting
an act
them
of love to the
justice.
person who's going to prison.
Okay, so it's not loving to put people in prison. So all right, so let's
Not
make
to the
this
people who you're
let's
imprisoning.
make this your magical rehabilitation center that you can't really describe and is inconsistent with your moral theory. If we were to put them in there, is that an
It
act
is
of love?
consistent. You just don't want to admit it.
You literally admitted you can't even describe at all the rehab that would apply to a child molester. So I don't
Because
know
I'm
why you
not
keep
a
bringing it up.
fucking expert, Bryce. Can you unplug your
So
fucking
why are you
ears
here
for
then?
1
Why are you
second?
debating?
Look at him
You don't have
losing his
answers.
mind, bro.
I'm not
It's all
losing
good.
my mind. I'm just saying
All
that
right,
I've already
let's
stated
move
I'm
on.
not an
We've done
expert.
slavery
Let's
for a
move
long
on.
time.
All right,
I
let's
have-
also not attack each other personally. I get it, it gets heated.
I agree, man.
But we can be nice to each other while we're here. And Robin
Can I tie
says,
things back to?
Well, Robin had a great way to tie that back, actually. She was asking, can either side give any data on how their moral system would benefit society? Have each side given their best example of an ethic that, or I'm sorry, have each side give their best example of an ethic that is superior?
I would say, Bryce, let's go with marriage and the nuclear family, because that is a Christian ethic and that's not a secular ethic. And you have some meta-analysis on these, right?
I have a decent amount of things regarding like divorce rates and stuff. But before we even get into that, I might as well at least ask this question before it becomes useless. Do you guys believe that marriage is better, like for society? Do you even believe that that's actually something that shows a social increase?
Is
Or do you
marriage
guys, or do you
either
guys
for
think that?
society?
Or do you,
I don't-
yeah. Or should
I
we
think
just?
people
don't-
should be
even-
free to marry any other consenting adults that they want. So if
That-
two men want to get married, there's no issue with that. In
I'm
fact,
talking-
if two men get married, that's a big help to society because now they can potentially adopt kids who don't have a home.
Okay, go ahead, Wi-Fi.
I don't see marriage as a helpful metric in measuring the health and well-being of a society.
Very ancient Greece of you. You can bring
Okay,
that up
so
later.
without
I don't think
marriage,
there's any imperative that people should get married. I don't think that.
Okay. do couples who are married or unmarried have more children?
Probably couples that are married, if I had to guess. Are you suggesting that birth rate is good for society?
Yes. Are you suggesting that there doesn't have to be a society in order for a society to be better?
I'm suggesting that birth rate is completely inversely related to life expectancy. The countries that have the highest birth rate, like Chad, Somalia, DR Congo, Central African Republic, Niger, these are also some of the countries with the lowest life expectancy. So if you care about people
So-
living a long time, then there's no reason
there
why we
other
should necessarily
factors?
care about having a really high birth rate.
Are there other
That's what the
factors
data
there?
shows.
Are there other factors that lead to life expectancy other than birth rate?
Yeah, sure. There's other factors, but they're
Many,
correlated
many,
with each
many.
other directly. So you
Yeah,
can't
anyway.
have both.
All right. So if you have a, let's say you had a birth rate of 0.1, would that be good for society or bad for society?
Well, your society is probably going to shrink unless you have a lot of immigration.
So if your birth rate stays at 0.1, regardless of immigration just means that eventually your society will die just further out. If you're,
No, it's
because if everybody that
not at
integrates
all.
into your society has a 0.1 birth rate, then they also are going to die out. So if you have a society that has or just talk about society at whole, all of society, if all of the world had a 0.1 birth rate, is that good or bad for society?
Well, obviously, if the birth rate is
Yeah.
too low, then the human race is going to go extinct. But having a
That's
higher
bad.
birth rate isn't necessarily better. So
Well,
why can't we just maintain? How about a birth
is
rate
it
of
bad?
1?
Is it bad?
I think I don't like playing whataboutism, and I feel like that's what this entire line of questioning is.
How would you feel if you didn't have breakfast this morning?
Hungry. Now,
Oh, wow. That's a
what if you had
whataboutism.
a country whose birth rate was like 1,000% or 25,000%? We're going to
Dude,
get
that would be dope.
overpopulated. We're going to reach
Oh,
overpopulation. The
overpopulated.
planet's going to run out of resources. There's going to be overcrowding. There's going to be more hunger.
And-
There's going to be
And how many
crowded
people would
housing.
it take in order to run out of resources on the planet?
What was the question again?
How long would it take, or how many people would it take to be overpopulated enough that we wouldn't have enough resources on Earth to feed them?
I have no idea. How
Okay, so
few
if it
people
were
would take?
if it were something like 1 billion years, would that be irrelevant?
So,
Yeah,
maybe-
probably.
Okay,
So,
it's
Wi-Fi,
irrelevant.
maybe can you explain in whatever kind of sense that you understand it, how is birth rate contributing positively to the well-being metric of a society?
There's actually a ton of ways to do it, but very simply, if there is no society, there is no better society.
Why can't we just maintain society? Why does it have
Well,
to be an increase?
You're not
If there's
doing that in
no
secular
high birth
ethics.
rate.
No, even at a 0.1 birth rate, that's still adding to the population. That's not a negative birth rate.
Yeah, no. 1 point, even in like the current like the secular data regarding like Pew Research Center, when it says that the secular societies tend to be around 1.8 children, that literally based off of the amount of people that are birthed versus the amount of number of that die, that literally means that that society is going to die out at 1.8. So I definitely wouldn't say 0.1.
In like
Well, I would
200
be-
years.
I
I
would
think.
probably
society,
say a
that
really
the
low
society
birth
would
rate,
die
like
in
0.1.
a generation. Actually, the society would be gone in like a generation and a half if you say 0.1.
Why is it better to have a birth rate of 2 compared to 1? Why do we need
Because
society to
two-
grow?
Because 2
Well,
is above the
even-
death threshold.
And it's also irrelevant because secular humanism or
Sorry,
secular people are under 2 by far. Why? Because they kill their children in the womb. They kill their human babies in the womb.
See,
You want to call it a fetus, call it
He's-
whatever
he
you
keeps
want.
going back-
It's a
he keeps-
human,
he
it's
keeps going back to
alive.
abortion.
Well, it's only different, right? Once they become out of the magical birth canal, right? The day
Bryce, when I
before,
say a
all
birth
Imagine-
rate of like 1 versus
fuck are you
2, I'm not
talking
saying
about?
like
Like,
It's what
with
gives them
regards to
rights.
the number of parents having kids. What I mean is like, what would be wrong with a maintenance level birth rate? Like, what
No,
if we just maintain our population? What's
You're
wrong with that?
under
Why
that.
does it
When
have
I
to be
said when I
growing
said
higher?
sorry, I just want to clarify this real quick. The number of 1.8 and 2 and 2.2 that I'm talking about in that specific research, that is how many children that are had on average with a family that is either secular or Christian. So with that being said, 1.8 is considered not enough because of the fact that they're per family and per time that people
2.1.
die in society, that the death rate is a higher number than the birth rate. Therefore, over time, that society will collapse and disappear if that rate maintains.
So no,
Yeah,
my
I
question
mean,
is,
if
why
you're
is
gonna
having
be
a
an
birth rate
if-
of
if-
more
if
than
you're gonna be-
2 necessary?
Two,
Why can't we just
2.1 is stability.
maintain our population?
You guys aren't maintaining.
No,
We are.
as long as you're an isolationist country, yeah, sure, but no country is an isolationist.
Are you
country,
talking
at
about
least-
immigration?
The world
Yes,
population is
Okay,
still
so you're
growing.
going to immigrate religious people to repopulate your secular society. Thank you so much
No.
for proving our point. We just won the debate.
No,
Anyone
what,
can
why?
immigrate. You don't have to
First
be
of all,
religious.
you're loading
you need
that
us.
up
You
with
need
this
us to not
idea.
die, literally.
Declaring
fuck
yourself
up,
the
Bryce.
winner
Bryce.
in
Bryce,
declaring
shut the
yourself
fuck
the
up.
winner in a bloodbath debate is a negative of point against your side.
Ooh.
Just a
Here,
heads
hey,
up.
we just won again, just for that negative point. So give me 2.
So no, you're loading up that claim there by stipulating that they are religious that are coming into a nation. It's not. We don't know if they're religious or not religious. I don't think it really matters because we're not actually measuring like the religiosity of those that are immigrating in. All I'm saying is that if you have, let's say you have that 0.1 or like a 1.0 birth rate, if you have an isolationist society, maybe that society will collapse. But no country out there is isolationists.
Okay, so
right
if you
now.
Humanism
import,
actually supports free travel. So there should be no isolated societies, according to
oh
humanism.
gosh,
Wi-Fi-
don't tell me you're a
Wi-Fi.
libertarian.
I think that
Wi-Fi.
anyone should be able to travel to any country they want.
Are you a sovereign citizen? sorry.
No.
Go,
Wi-Fi.
Bryce, what are you saying?
Yeah, I just wanted
All
to.
right,
give a second.
Wi-Fi is poisoning
So-
the well at this point.
All right.
Okay.
So regarding the thing where you said that if there was an isolationist society, that you do concede that it would collapse, right?
If they're isolationists, sure.
Okay, cool. So when we're talking
I mean,
about
they would-
an
they would
ethic being
collapse
better
for
for
more than-
society,
Well, so they would collapse, not just because of birth rate factors, but also there are other factors that play into isolationist societies.
but even
got a
just
question.
with the sorry, I just want to complete this real quick, and I'll let you talk, Jed. I'm sorry, I just wanted to complete this. So regarding that, then, even if we're just talking about the birth rate thing, regarding this hypothetical, whatever, isolationist secular society that currently runs along the current birth rate that it has versus the death rate of the world that's right now, you do admit that that society would be wiped out.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So you do admit, or do you admit that even if we're just talking about the birth rate factors at the current rate of this isolationist society following this data that has been shown, that this society would be wiped out?
I think that it would be one factor amongst many.
But it would wipe that society out, even just itself.
I don't.
He
I
asked
don't.
you to
no, no,
isolate that factor.
Yeah,
So just talking about that factor, would you say no?
I don't know if only by that factor, because with an isolationist society, you have several other factors that come into it. So
I'm
I
asking
think it
about the
would
birth
be
rate.
right. I know you're asking about the birth rate, but what I'm telling you is that there's so many factors that are interwoven that affect a society that there's no way that you would directly be able to attach it to any one metric.
Okay. And so if we're talking specifically about the birth rate at the rate that's currently talked about with the data, that would eventually cause a collapse of society due to there being literally no people, right?
I'm sorry. Did I stutter before?
But because you keep bringing up other things, I'm asking if the birth
Right.
rate would
And
play
I'm
the
saying
role in
that
causing
the
society
collapse
to
of
not exist.
society
Won't
is a
answer.
complex topic that definitely involves that particular metric, but is not only
Okay.
dictated by that metric.
All right.
So
And
I
would
mean,
you-
you
okay,
could either
I get it.
accept that or not. That's up to
Okay,
you.
cool. All right. Would you say that a society that's also isolationist, that does not die off because of the birth rate, is a better society?
No, it's not. It's not inherently.
So
a
a
better
society dying off by birth rate isn't. So birth rate doesn't even determine the flourishing of a society in your view, then.
That's what I started this with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he can't do simple
honestly,
math.
I don't even need to say anything else. He says everyone can die and it doesn't matter.
Why is having a positive birth
I
rate
can-
better
yeah.
than a maintenance level birth rate?
So here's the thing, Jed. If secularists, non-religious
seconds?
people had a birth rate of say 2.2, right, and they were maintaining, that would be better than where they're at now. That wouldn't necessarily be different than religious people who are at like 2.3, 2.4 right now, right? With really religious people being upwards towards 3. That wouldn't be better. But the problem is you're under maintenance. So that means your society will die out if it's just secularists.
Right, because
No.
you're not factoring in immigration. But
Right.
my
But
question
if you
is,
only-
you seem to be
religious people,
asserting
replace-
that higher birth rate is better no matter what. The higher the birth rate, the better. But I don't think
No.
that's true. If your birth rate is like
That is-
29,
I'm
you're
finished
going to
your
get
points.
overcrowded. And I'm not proposing an isolationist society. I think that
Right.
all societies should have immigration.
One final point. With immigration, if you immigrate in people who are secularists with the same birth rate as you, that only works for so long, you still die out. So you have to import people with higher birth rates, i.e. religious people, in order to fill that gap. And eventually your society becomes religious.
No, you don't. If your immigration rate is high enough, then you can maintain a population with a really low birth rate.
Yeah, but if they're all secularists, eventually you run out of secularists, and then you don't
No,
have
because
anybody
you
in
can
your
keep immigrating people. The immigration rate's not going to stop. That's the whole point.
Okay.
As long as our global population isn't dwindling, this isn't really a concern at all.
So you still need, because if there were no religious people and there were only secular people on planet Earth, the people you're immigrating into your country will also have the same birth rate, and eventually you will all die out. That's the point. It's simple math. You need religious people to keep your society going.
Religious people aren't the only people that fuck. God damn.
I'm not.
Yeah,
in
we just
favor
have
of
babies. We don't
eliminating
kill them in the
religious
womb.
people. I'm in favor of religious pluralism. I think people should have freedom of religion. So I'm not proposing that
Yeah, but
everyone
if-
needs to stop being Christian.
Right, exactly. You need us. You actually need the religious people in order for your society to keep going.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. Like Godless Engineer said, we can also fuck. We don't need religious
Yeah,
people
you just
to do that.
kill
for
the
us.
baby once it's conceived.
No. I feel like you're definitely trying to attach some kind of moral sense to like the abortion topic here,
Yeah,
but
The
not
murder of
everybody.
babies in the womb.
What does the
no,
Bible
not-
say about abortion? Because when I read Numbers 5, it says that if a man suspects his wife of cheating on him, he can force her to drink magically cursed water and then induce a miscarriage. So the
Force her
Bible
to
is
drink?
pro-abortion as long as the baby was conceived out of wedlock. Do you agree with that?
No, it's actually a choice upon the mother to kill the baby again.
No, the
Yeah,
water
wait,
is
it really
magical.
is.
So if the
Okay,
baby was
so if
conceived
I-
out of wedlock, then the baby,
Right.
then the fetus
Right.
dies.
So,
but if
so if
it's-
I
Wi-Fi.
have a baby knowing that I'm
Wi-Fi.
going to die for adultery, and I commit
Wi-Fi.
adultery knowing that I could have a baby, whose choice is it?
Wi-Fi, would you force an
answer.
11-year-old child to give birth?
If she was raped, yes. I don't think that you murder
Okay.
somebody based on the actions
See?
of their father.
So the
Shitty fucking
value-
person.
the
Yeah.
value of a
You
fetus.
just
depends
don't
on
know what
how they're
logical
conceived.
consistency is.
Okay. So
Oh
there's
no, I know. You're just a shitty fucking asshole. That's all you are.
Okay, so there's
Wait,
few-
there's no docs
He
pointed
is.
points docked.
well, we should definitely not be insulting each other, but there's a few audience points that we'll get to, and then which will give you all some ammunition. They're good points. They'll give each side some ammunition, and then we'll move into the 7-minute or I'll just bump it up to the 8-minute conclusion because it was 7.5 minutes. After the conclusions are done, if anybody wants to stick around, I'm going to be up for a while streaming, so you're welcome to stay on here, and we can have some discussions with audience members. There's 10 slots available. But I'm going to get to these real fast, and then we will, like I said, there's some good points for the this, but let's not go into like 15-minute diatribes on an individual topic because there are quite a few actually. So Austin Sims says he asked the secular ethic on testosterone, and he wants to see where in the Bible it tells you the ethics on testosterone, make it make sense. And this is for the Christian side.
I want to set this up for Bryce because I am inquiring into orthodoxy. One of the reasons I am inquiring into orthodoxy is because of sola scriptura. You're right. If you're using sola scriptura as your basis, then this question actually has some power behind it. But there is a normative authority, and I think the direction I would go is with drunkenness, right? There's a normative authority on what drunkenness is. This is the church, and these are councils and priests all the way. Bryce can get into this, but there's a normative authority that tells us what is and isn't abuse to your body. I'm assuming stuffing myself with testosterone would be akin to being drunk all the time.
Yeah, that would just be equated to self-abuse, actually, causing yourself to actually receive some form of artificial chemical in some way, shape, or form that changes the way that you are as a person. So it
Gotcha.
would be in the realm of self-abuse historically.
And then nobody
So-
on. Oh,
Well,
sorry.
I have another question on that. So Bryce said earlier that after the Bible was written, there's no longer any revelation from God. So if we're not relying on sola scriptura, then where are we getting this new information? It's just people making stuff up?
No, the church that was instilled at Pentecost is something that historically can be attested to and can be shown as people that succeed from these people that came from the apostles. And these people that came from the apostles established these things called ecumenical councils, where they determine all of these different rules, where we follow something from the book of Acts that states that the Holy Spirit is present where everybody is gathered as bishops. And so if any kind of rules are declared, we actually do believe that God actually infallibly declared these rules to be the case. Rather, it's not new revelation. Rather, it's just clarifying revelation that may have been considered ambiguous by some.
And the
And so
majority
what
of
test can
Christians
we
believe
do
that.
to determine if the Holy Spirit actually helped to instill these rules, or it was just
Are you-
people making shit up?
Is this like an internal question, like an internal critique question?
I'm just asking. If let's say
What-
this council of
Are you
fallible
asking me
men
to
says,
empirically do it? That's why I'm asking. Is this internal or what?
what
do you need to-
test
do you-
can I'll let you determine if it's internal or external. What test can we do to see if the Holy Spirit is actually guiding these people or not?
Okay, so in my belief, if the church declares something as an ecumenical council, it is an infallible statement. So there's no testing needed by the laity. That's why I'm asking if this is an internal statement or an internal critique, then I would simply just say that I just submit to the church because of the fact that it has infallible counseling. But if you're talking about like an external critique empirically, you really can't. Their faith is still involved in religion. So like I'm not going to sit here and try to make it sound like there's some empirical thing that I can show the Holy Spirit with. I would never do that.
Gotcha. And then nobody on fire says race wasn't an idea then, like it is now. It was based on nations. That doesn't negate its application. I think this was towards the slavery concept being discussed.
Yeah, regarding like what, Leviticus 25?
Okay. So then it still wasn't based on
Yeah.
race by definition. If race
No, no,
wasn't a thing
like-
like that back then.
No, right. It's not race isn't a thing like it is now. Back then, the different nations that were segmented, like the nations around Israel, those would have been individual races. So essentially, God was saying, "Hey, enslave different races."
So there weren't different races in different nations.
No,
I think
each nation was its
That's
own
the
race.
exact opposite.
Okay,
of
so there
what he
was
just said.
only people within every nation was only one race.
That was the understanding of race at the time.
How? Like Jews literally incorporated foreigners into their land, into their nation all the time. Would they
Right,
then all
and
of a sudden
would
be
have
Jews?
they would have become part of the Israelite nation, which
Then
would
why
have
did they
made them the
distinguish
Israelite race.
between them?
Back then, it was more tribalistic and less racist. So the Israelites were tribalists. So they say Israel's good, Canaanites bad. And then, with the
That's
antebellum,
not
it
even true.
becomes white people good, black people bad. So it's still the same fundamental
It wasn't.
concept. You're just exchanging
It
race
wasn't we
with
can
a
enslave
tribe.
people of other races because they're bad. It was that you could actually trade with them and the people that were enslaved because there were people enslaved in those nations. But either way, it doesn't matter because what you're saying is antebellum slavery was based on race, and so was Hebrew slavery. But race wasn't a thing in the way that the antebellum slavery had it back in ancient Israel. So you're saying this category
Well,
that didn't even exist back then in the minds of the people was their basis for slavery. That's nonsense.
No, I mean, what I said was that Leviticus 25, 44 through 46 says that you can enslave the people from around you. And
you're
in
saying that's based on
antebellum
race.
South, no, I didn't say it was based on race.
Okay,
I'm just saying I'm saying that the nations around Israel would have been considered different races under the understanding of race as it existed at that time.
It's just simply not true, though. Like I said, there were literally people of different races
Just read
within
the history.
ancient Israel, and they were distinguished. Even when they bought land and took on the Jewish faith, they weren't Jews, dude. They weren't.
Gotcha. And then Starch Manning is supporting the Christians here. He's saying truth telling, the truth will set you free, John 8:32, denying the harm of slavery and redlining. And Charlie Kirk is not telling the truth. Christians are called to confess sin, not erase it.
Right. So stop lying about Charlie Kirk's history. I think that's the general thing about it. I'm not saying that y'all are. I'm saying
about
that
to
that's
say,
what the super chat is.
I was about to
saying.
say, I was like, I don't know shit about him, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
One thing I
He
do
was
know
a
about him is
racist
that
bigot. Fuck Charlie Kirk.
yeah, Charlie Kirk also
Yeah.
said if he ever gets on a plane and sees a black pilot, he's going to think,
Okay.
"Oh boy, I hope he's
Listen.
qualified."
Well, Godless Engineer has his panties in a bunch and will get on a debate stage with me again because he's virtue signaling.
Calm down with
But
that.
wait, you won't call him out for saying stuff?
I
But you will
did.
me?
I
No,
said
you
that. I
didn't.
said that to
After
both
I
sides.
said it. But
I
Jed,
said-
I will debate you on Charlie Kirk anytime. I would love that.
And then Austin Sims says giving people health care that saves their lives and mental health equals worthy of death or slavery. Can we really be sure that's evil? Atheist. I think that was more of a comment, but if anybody wants to respond to that, feel free to.
Yeah, the first part is, I think, in reference to trans care. So, like, you're giving someone gender affirming care versus enslaving them. So, yeah, it seems like Christianity has it completely backwards, where they don't actually care about people's well being. They just care about obeying authority figures and just assuming that authority, the Bible or this church full of fallible men, knows everything.
You believe
Yeah,
that well-being
also-
has to do with someone being able to have their limbs cut off? Yeah.
If
Well,
yeah,
would you
if someone's
consider it?
transgender and they don't want a penis anymore, they should be able to remove it.
As well as their legs, and they should be able to identify as disabled now, right?
And that would be healthy.
Oh, it's perfectly fine to cut the tip of your dick off. Gotcha.
Relevant to my question.
Yeah, if someone, I already answered this. If someone really wanted to cut their legs off, then I
It's fine.
don't necessarily
In
have anything
Identify
against
now
it.
as,
Otherwise,
and they can identify as disabled
Is
and
it-
get like
and
a
the
disabled
suicide
thing and
rate
park in the
after-
disabled spots and stuff, right?
if they want a better parking spot so badly, there's probably easier ways to do it. Like, say, just print off your own disabled sticker. But yeah, if they really want to live without legs, then who are we to say they can't?
Suicide
is
rates after
circumcision-
transitioning don't go down.
Is it? Well, that's because of lack of support and
Yeah,
and
see?
probably people like you.
So then
but
why make the claim in the
is
super chat
circumcision gender
that it saves lives?
gender affirming care?
No.
Gender affirming care has nothing
But it's
to do with it. It's nothing to do-
genital mutilation, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And you're okay with that?
I mean, I honestly
We
don't
do it as
care
Chri-
whether
we don't do it as
someone
Christians.
gets circumcised or not.
I'm about to say it's not.
I
It's not a
think that-
covenant. It's not a covenantal necessity in Christianity.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure.
I don't even know
what
the
it
health
is.
studies behind it, and our healthcare system could just have it as a tradition.
Are
Yeah.
you in favor of allowing parents to chop off the tip of their son's wiener without his consent?
If you want my personal opinion, no, actually, me and my family don't like that. It happened to me. I don't think that it should happen.
Then why did Christians push it as a way to prevent their children from masturbating?
Because they were wrong.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
I
I
can-
can.
I
I
can
can
see
see.
it.
Here's
He
the cool
commanded-
thing about my. The
I'd
cool
love
thing about
to
my
see
ethical
someone else.
system is that I can point to something to be like, hey, by the way, Christians, you're not doing it right. You guys can't do that.
Oh, okay. What does Jesus unequivocally say? Don't cut off your tip of your dick.
That's an argument from silence.
Yeah, Paul.
fallacy.
I mean, Paul does.
God
Yeah,
in the
I was
Old
just-
Paul
Testament
literally.
I was-
Paul
I was
literally
wondering.
makes that. Paul literally makes that argument to Peter specifically in Galatians.
Why was it okay? Why was it mandatory
stop- he
to
said stop
circumcise in
making
the
the
past, but then it
Gentiles,
became
circumcise their children.
unmandatory?
What?
Why did it used to be mandatory to circumcise and then it stopped being mandatory?
I
What
want you
made
to
God
answer.
change his mind?
Bryce, I just find it like I say this genuinely. Why didn't you know that answer as a previous Christian? It's a very simple answer. It's
When
like
I
the
started
entire
looking
gospel.
into this kind of stuff, I realized how bogus the whole religion was. I
But
mean, the
wh-
whole notion of covenant
didn't study
theology is
enough.
God changing his mind. He has a perfect
Can you
law that he
answer-
wants humans to follow for 1,000 generations, and then he changes the rules. So it used to be that you have to cut off the tip of your dick, and then God said, never mind. Now you don't have to. So why
I would
was it
like-
good in the past and now it's not?
I would like to hear Bryce's answer, but I genuinely am curious if you could answer that from a Christian paradigm, seeing that you were a Christian for many years.
Yeah, one of the main reasons why circumcision was done back then was because it was for health purposes. It is something that is commonly known as well as something for health because of bacteria that can build up in the end of the scrotum. And so back in the ancient world, cleanliness was not near as easy. And so that was just something that was commonly done as a tradition, but also for a health reason, which is why we think that God would have done it in that time period for instilling that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
to answer your question, Wi-Fi, my answer at it when I was a Christian probably would have been something like, sex for pleasure is immoral. So God wants you to cut off the foreskin so that your glands get dull and you don't enjoy sex as much.
Interesting.
It didn't affect me.
Yeah, another question I have for the cleanliness argument, your hands can also get really filthy. So would you be in favor of chopping off our hands so that we don't have to wash them anymore? Because washing your penis is so inconvenient.
Well, I think the main purpose of these laws were to point to the truth of Jesus Christ, as Jesus said.
Your hands also don't just get infected only because of the fact that they're just dirty. Your hands would get infected if you had an open wound. An uncircumcised scrotum, technically speaking, could get infected just because things get in there. I'm not gonna lie to you though. Can we please move on, bro? We're just talking about
Yep.
penises right
Yep. Next question was from 55445.
Okay.
Just because birth rate is one thing does not mean it will stay that way to the downfall
Perfect.
of society. As population declines, space and resources open up, people will naturally have more kids. Looks like it's a comment, but if you'd like to respond, you can.
Yeah,
now. Is that a
absolutely.
good
So,
thing?
well, and the thing is, what duty do secularists have to repopulate?
None. There's no imperative that
Exactly.
we have kids.
And
You
is a
can have kids, you
worldview
cannot have kids.
is a worldview that has a duty to repopulate better or worse for a society that is underpopulated?
Well, if the society is underpopulated, then we could argue that more people are going to help, but you can also get more people through immigration as well.
But to answer the question, then, if the worldview had a duty to repopulate, then yes, that would help. That would be better for that society that's underpopulated.
Is there any country on Earth now
you answer
that's
the
at
question?
risk? What's the question?
All right. So if there was a worldview that had the duty to repopulate for a society that's underpopulated, is that better for society or worse?
I'd say neither, because you could also gain population through immigration.
Okay, but regardless of other ways, would that worldview be better or worse?
I think that it would be
Neither.
worse because I think that you're actually establishing an ethic right there that could be
Yeah.
used to justify rape.
How so?
It's true.
I mean, if you're going to say go forth and multiply and everything like that, if you're, let's say, however old you are, Wi-Fi, and you can't, attract a woman, you can't get married, no woman ever wants to touch you at all. If you're supposed to go out, multiply, and everything like that, you could make the justification that based on your religion, you should go and forcibly rape somebody and force them to have your child.
Yeah,
Thank you
too
for
bad
this.
that there's multiple different positions that are positions in the church that exist, except for just marriage.
And
there's
you just
monastics.
Where does it
described
say
you
don't rape?
just described utilitarianism, which is what secular humanism is based off of. So thank you for that.
No, that's not what I did.
If the utilist
could you
reproduce-
tell me where in the Bible it says don't rape somebody?
Oh my goodness! Literally, if you fornicate,
Is that a real argument that you're making? Have you run out of
I'm-
ideas?
I didn't
The
make an
Bible
argument. I
literally
asked a
never
question.
says not to rape. In fact,
It-
God
that's
uses
just
rape
pretty funny.
as a
Can you-
punishment.
no, he doesn't.
God orchestrates rape on purpose in the Bible. In Deuteronomy 28:30, it
And
says
so
you will
that
be
means-
pledged to marry a woman, and another will take her and rape her. It's a punishment for sin that God
Yeah,
uses.
it's called a prophecy.
Yeah,
If you touch
God
the stove,
promises
if you
to
touch the
use
stove, it's
rape
gonna get
as a
hot and
punishment.
burn your. If you touch a hot stove, it's gonna burn your hand.
No. This isn't the natural consequences of sin. This
It's
is God
not?
promising to
Wait a second.
orchestrate
That's
rape.
exactly what that is.
Hold
in
on,
Deuteronomy.
Wi-Fi, did you
It's
just
saying
make
that-
the
it's saying the
argument that
consequences.
women that get raped deserve it?
No, I made
How
the
could you
argument
possibly
that.
get that from that?
Yeah, I made the argument that if you disobey God, there are consequences.
Like rape?
When did I
That
say that
God
the woman who was
orchestrates
raped
on
was good?
purpose.
When did I
I'm
ever say
sorry.
that was a good
I
thing
was,
or
I
that
was
she
drawing
deserved
from
it?
your no. I was drawing from your example. You said that if you touch a hot like iron or something like that, then you get
Yeah.
burned. In the same way, in this particular case, and what we were
No.
talking about in the context, if a woman does X thing that
If
causes her to get raped, that's just the consequence.
you
that
go
God
to a
has
war,
laid on you.
if you go to a war with a nation that is known for raping and pillaging, and you lose this war, you are going to get raped and pillaged. Why would they lose this war? Because God is not with them. God is not helping them.
I just want to point out that in Deuteronomy 28, it's not the woman who did something to earn a rape. It's her
Right.
fiance. The man disobeyed God, and then the woman got raped as a punishment.
Yeah.
Now, the
So
Bible also says that the punishment for a rapist should be being forced to marry his rape victim and paying the
You don't
victim's
wanna go
father
down that
50
route.
shekels.
yeah, that's completely wrong.
Yeah, do you want to
That's
address that? We
directly
can talk
from
about that.
Deuteronomy.
Yeah, no, we can talk about that verse if you want.
I'd
You wanna talk
rather
about that
just
verse?
get through the rest of
Wait,
the
yeah, I
super
don't.
chats so
Well,
that
no, I
can
don't.
leave this
I don't think it's
gross
fair that Jed can just
discussion.
claim this awful thing that he's completely
Deuteronomy
wrong about without us
22
talking about it.
verses 28 through 29.
No, we know it. Don't worry.
Do
You
you
go
want to
ahead
come
and
back
do
to that maybe then after?
Yeah, we can possibly
if
come back to
if
it.
y'all stick around and Saul. So Saul, I'm just going to read this. You don't have to respond to this. They did super chat though. I have to honor the super chat program. Godless engineer, you don't have an account for metaphysics, so how can you criticize drinking magic water? Feel free to respond or not respond. I can move on to the next.
I don't know what that super chat's referring to. I don't know when I
It was about the
referenced
abortion
magic
test.
water.
I think it was me who said that. I was referring
Okay.
to Numbers 5, the test of the bitter waters. So there's magical water that a woman drinks in order to induce a miscarriage, but it's magic because it only induces a miscarriage if she cheated on her husband. So abortion is okay sometimes if you conceived out of wedlock.
I mean, we've already went through this.
Gotcha. Yep. And then nobody on fire. Not sure what this one was responding to. Feel free to address it, or we can move on to the next one. Actually, it's the husband's choice because he's the one who is jealous in numbers.
Yeah, that's regards to the same exact verse we were just talking about. The
Gotcha,
husband
gotcha.
accuses his wife, and then he
Right.
makes her drink the water.
And then there's another one. I think this is in regards to the circumcision. Genesis
Wait.
17.
Let me just because
sure.
he said it's the husband's choice because no, it's if the woman wasn't unfaithful, then it's her choice because she was the one who chose to be unfaithful.
No, drinking the water is the
Right.
man's choice.
Okay, but the dead baby is a result of the woman's choice, not the husband's.
No, it's
husband
the
doesn't-
result of God.
The husband
who's
says,
the
"Are
one
you
who's
pregnant?"
magically imbuing the water.
The husband
with
says, "Are you
supernatural
pregnant?" She
powers.
says, "No." What does that imply? That she's going to drink?
Well, no, I mean it actually started with laying out the fact that if the husband just so happens to think that the wife has been unfaithful, then she can drink this drink in order to purge her loins of
Right.
anything.
And do you think that men and women who get married are naturally opposed to each other, or do you think usually people get married because they love each other?
Well, back in those days in the Old Testament, women were regarded as property. So it didn't matter if the woman wanted to get
So
married or
women
not. The
did not
father just
consent to
basically sold her
marriage.
to a new husband.
Women
No.
did not consent to marriage in ancient Israel.
Not always.
What's the source?
I've got one for
Bible.
that. Let's see.
In the Bible,
Apple.
Jacob that becomes Israel literally buys his 2 wives.
And was that without consent?
Where
Yes.
does the Bible say that it was without consent?
Yeah, I mean he just
Yeah, you
like,
think we can make claims like that too?
No,
there's
yeah. If
one
you
in,
actually read the story of Jacob, he just goes and he talks to Laban, and he's like, "Hey, Laban, I
Hmm.
want your daughter." He works
And
for
how do we
7
know?
years in order to buy the daughter.
Right. He also
Because,
has
I mean,
How do we know that they didn't consent to it? Again, that's a
and
question.
also he also has multiple wives, right?
he does.
Yeah, so
And
polygamy
Yeah.
is
two
okay in
So-
Christianity.
So a person in the Bible did things against the law of God. Wow, I never heard that before.
Where's the law of God that says you should only have one wife?
Oh, there it is again.
Is
Nobody-
a question.
What did the Bible say this? We just did that to you, and you just like brushed it off like it was nothing.
But
I
Or
didn't
you
brush
like
it
you
off.
made a
I
claim about
answered it.
something about the Bible. I'm like, where does it say that they
Right.
didn't consent to it? And you're just like, wow.
Do you-
just
Right.
read
you
the
I
know-
said read the story, and
Yeah, it
does
doesn't
not
say that they
include
didn't
any-
consent. It doesn't say that they didn't.
It,
consent.
it does
The
not show
consent of
any
the woman is
consideration
never
for the
brought up by
consent.
the
It doesn't
Bible as
say that
something
they
that
that they.
matters.
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they needed any of that information.
yeah, it's literally
The Bible
from the
makes no
beginning of the
indication that the
Bible.
woman's consent matters.
Yeah,
you think a
again, like
woman would
we,
wanna
yeah, we
marry
can we,
her
yeah we can just
rapist?
armchair theology all
Again,
we want and just make
It
claims.
looks
about
like
the
we
Bible.
don't. Looks like we
Without
can't go
any
back to it because Jed
theology
keeps
in
You
it.
bringing
are
it
that's
up.
Just
exactly what you're
reading the
doing. You're
story.
making
Alright.
claims and then just
If
interpreting
I was
it by
a woman
yourself.
who got
I'm
raped, I
just
certainly would
That's
not
not
want
what the
to
Bible
marry
is
my
saying.
You're
We've said this
interpreting it
multiple
from your own
times.
perspective, so that's cool.
Well, how do we
Where
know whose
does it say that
interpretation
they
is right?
consented?
Where does it say that they didn't? You see how easy that is?
No, but I'm just reading what's in the
That's how-
Bible.
that's
you
how
guys are
heavy- that's how heavy
inserting
your claim is.
information into it.
It's that easy. I can
It's
just
not-
say the opposite, and it means nothing.
Right, but I have a stronger standing in
No,
this
you
because
don't.
it
Show how
literally
it's
doesn't
stronger.
say anything.
Show how it's stronger.
Because it literally has the transaction only happening between Jacob and Laban.
Okay, so an argument from silence is your evidence.
No, that's not an argument from
where- so
silence.
then-
That's
okay, so then
saying,
what's the
that's
argument?
saying that Laban and Jacob arranged
It doesn't
the
talk
purchase.
about the woman, right? It doesn't talk about the women's decision. So then, therefore, they didn't consent, right? That's your argument.
No, I mean, I'm saying
what's
that
your
it
actual
didn't
argument?
matter whether or not they consented. They
Where does
could
it
have
say that?
consented, they could have not consented, who knows? But all I'm saying is that the Bible portrays it as a business transaction
Where does it
between
say that they
Laban,
didn't
the father,
consent?
and I'm saying that the Bible portrays it as a business transaction between Laban and Jacob, and
And
that's
does it verbatimly state that they did not consent to it? Does it say
You're
that?
you're inserting
Man, you are
information
really
into
bad
it.
at answering questions. I'm telling you.
No, I am answering your question. It doesn't directly. I
No,
know
you're just
I
accusing
did
me of
already.
something instead.
No, I already answered what you were asking me. It doesn't directly say they did or didn't, but all the
But it
Bible portrays
concludes
it as
that you're true. That
all the
you're right.
Bible portrays it as is a business relationship between Laban and Jacob.
Therefore,
What
she
else or
did.
what?
Therefore, they
You
didn't
can't.
consent. Is that your argument?
No, I'm saying that the consent didn't matter, and that's been our point the entire time.
That's an argument from silence.
It's not an argument from
That's
silence.
verbatimly an argument from silence. There's
If you
nothing
say
that says that their
does
consent matters or
matter,
doesn't
then
matter.
you're also using an argument from silence too.
I
Wait.
never made that claim. You're the one that made the claim that something
Right. I made the
positively
claim
is
that
attributed to the
Christianity
verse.
doesn't even bother with consent. Consent's not even brought up
That's
in
an
Christianity.
What
that
was-
is an
what was the
argument
woman's
from
name here?
silence. That is an argument from silence. You understand?
What was the wife's name again?
I don't remember.
Well, I think she could have just hopped on Tinder
I
and
don't know
found
that
a better
herself.
suitable mate.
Okay, and nobody on fire in regards to this was said, no, dude, she has to drink the water to see if she's unfaithful. It does nothing if she is faithful. So feel free to respond to that. I think it's just a clarification.
Yeah, I think
on the verse.
Wi-Fi was suggesting that it was a test to see if she was pregnant or not. But whether she's pregnant, that's how the verse starts. If she's expecting a child and the man accuses her of being unfaithful, like if he thinks it's someone else's kid, then the water is to kill the fetus. But if she was faithful, then it doesn't kill the fetus, because evidently I presume that God is the one imbuing the water with the magical power to kill fetuses.
Yeah, then you're right. I misunderstood. So yeah, I mean, what would be inconsistent with the Christian worldview to say that he couldn't do that?
Well, I think your position is that abortion is wrong, but God's position is that abortion is okay if the wife cheats on her husband.
No, but it does nothing if she's faithful, right?
Right.
Okay.
So abortion
then
is
she is
okay as long as
choosing-
she cheated on her
No,
husband.
she is choosing to kill the baby
No,
because she knows she
God
was
is
unfaithful.
killing the baby.
She knows she was unfaithful, right?
Yeah.
So if she willingly takes the water and drinks it, then the
No,
baby
she's
dies.
No, the man made the decision in that respect. The
Then
wife
what would
doesn't have
happen
the
if she
ability to
said
Where
say
does
I
it
no.
was
say that the
unfaithful?
Bible? Where does it say that the woman doesn't have a decision in it?
And where? And
Sorry,
where?
Bryce, are you just
Yeah,
crashing
see?
out at this point? Because
Where
I'm
would
actually
she-
having, I'm
what it
actually having a
seems like.
great time because of how ridiculous that this is.
Who gives the water magical powers to kill fetuses? Is it the woman or God?
In this case, it
someone
would be
else.
God.
Right. So
Right.
God
Okay.
kills fetuses on purpose
Listen,
for the
one,
only reason because they were conceived out of wedlock.
every single death is by the hand of God. He gives life and he takes life. First of all,
I brought you into
Secondly-
this world. I'll take you out. It's Bill Cosby.
Divine
world.
Secondly-
command theory.
Let's tie this back into the topic, though, please.
well, I don't.
Right,
I
it's
don't.
divine command theory. That's what Wi-Fi is
No.
putting out here. Is that
Not
it's
at all.
okay because God wanted it.
Literally not what I said.
Killing people is okay if God does it. God can do literally
All right, so
anything.
you can
and we
keep
can't say
you can
it's
keep
moral
straw
or
manning the
immoral.
position, but that's not what I said.
Okay, what did you say?
I said that if she chooses to kill the child, or if she drinks the water knowing she's unfaithful, she chooses to kill the child. Nowhere is that okay or good.
Okay, so hold on. It's my understanding from the Old Testament that if she chooses to take the drink, then she evacuates the fetus and basically commits an abortion. That's killing the child. But if she admits to being unfaithful to the husband, she then gets stoned, and therefore the child also dies by the
who
husband
said-
stoning him.
Who said that she would get stoned with child? You don't think the father wants
Leviticus
that child?
20:10 says adultery is punishable by death.
Yeah, and if she has a child in her, you don't think that the father wants that child?
There's no stipulation. in
his.
Leviticus.
Oh, another
If it's
argument.
not
for
his
silence.
child, then he wants to either
What-
kill it or kill both of them. Those
Says
are her
who?
only two options.
And so she can't deliver the baby and then be stoned? That's not a possibility within this verse?
Deliver the baby and then get stoned. So her three options are die and have someone else raise her kid, have them
Yeah,
both
because she
die,
committed
or kill the
adultery.
kid.
She already made the choice when she committed adultery. If in this say you lived in America and we
So
had a
why
law
thought
on the
you would
books. Hold on, let
kill
me
a
finish this
woman that
question.
cheats?
Let me finish it. I was talking to Jed. Jed, if you lived in America and there was a law on the books that said if you had sex outside of marriage, you would receive the death penalty, would you be more cautious about having sex outside of marriage?
Probably.
Right. So if you did, the risk is if I get caught doing this, this is the death penalty.
Do you think that's a moral rule and that's how we should run our country?
I'm just making an example.
Well, sure, but that's the law of the Bible. So do you think that America
Again,
should enforce that rule?
if I was a Protestant within sola scriptura, your question would have more weight behind it. But there are people with a normative authority who apply the rules to society currently.
Right, because God doesn't give divine revelation after the Bible, except but he kind of does
You're
because men
assuming,
just say things and make
yeah,
stuff
you're
up and
assuming
then-
that councils are not divine revelation.
I withhold belief that councils have divine revelation until there's
So
been a
it's-
demonstration.
So
And
it's an
there's never
external
been a
critique that
demonstration that
doesn't
God
matter
has
about
revealed
Christianity.
anything to anyone. That's the biggest problem with
But you're
Christian ethics is that you can't demonstrate that your God even exists.
The truth
Oh,
or the
gosh.
falsity of Christianity in of itself doesn't determine whether the ethics are better for society, by the way. I just thought I'd put that out there. It's a complete non sequitur to our debate.
Well, you mentioned earlier, Bryce, that your foundation is that we're made in the image of God. So if there's no God, then your foundation collapses.
Yeah, and even if every single Christian lies to themselves and say that there actually is no image of God, but then they at least believe it, even if it's completely false, it still ends up being a better moral system than you guys.
I have a question. If Christianity were false, but it actually proved to make society better, should we believe it?
No, I'm in favor of believing things that are true and not lying
Right.
to people.
Okay. So why do you believe in human rights then?
Okay. So I guess go ahead and respond to that, and then we'll go ahead and move into the conclusions here. Hopefully, y'all got a lot of ammunition for the conclusions.
I gotta
with
use the
the
bathroom real
questions
quick, so you guys keep
and
going.
prior
Sorry.
discussion. Go ahead and respond, and then we'll go ahead and move into the conclusions, just so we don't go into 20 more questions, right?
Sure. So you asked, why do I believe in human rights? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Well, human rights are things that humans make up. So I think
Mhm.
that humans should have rights because I think that life is preferable to death. I value well-being, autonomy, and I think that just killing people and not offering people any rights or freedoms is inherently bad. And that's one of the
Right.
foundations of secular humanism is freedom and autonomy.
So you can believe in things that are made up as long as they're better for society.
Well, a human right isn't made up in the sense that it's a fictitious idea that isn't, tied to anything necessarily real. I mean, a right is something that we just make up. That's what a right is. So if we say, humans have a right to life, then it's true in the sense that we've made that up. But if you say God is real, and just hypothetically, if God wasn't real,
Right
that
there.
would be a false claim.
No, because this is the last thing I'll say, Taco.
You
Let me
got
just
your clarification question and after the question, so we're going to go ahead and move into the conclusions. Hopefully, y'all got some ammunition on both sides here for the conclusions. Since the Christians began initially, the atheists are going to start here, and then the Christians will finish with the conclusion after them. So, atheists, whichever one of y'all wants to begin first, can begin your conclusion first. You'll have 8 minutes.
I'm happy to go first, John, if you want. So, yeah, Christian morality is a complete mess. And I think we saw that today. There's no agreement amongst Christians about what actually counts as true Christianity and what doesn't. In the supposedly God stopped doing divine revelation, and he never tells anyone
was wild,
anything
yo.
after the Bible was written,
Thank you for
except
the super
for the
chats. I'll read
idea
them
that in certain councils who have authority for some reason because they just claim that they have authority, the Holy Spirit is there, and therefore everything they say is automatically true. So I'm a little reluctant to believe that some group of people are divinely inspired because they can't demonstrate it. There needs to be a demonstration that there's divine inspiration, not just a declaration. Because from the way I see it, Christianity is nothing but men asserting to know God's opinion with no justification whatsoever. There's tons of horrible rules in the Old Testament that our opponents seem to agree are obsolete, like the right to own slavery and how you should be able to force rape victims to marry their rapists against their consent and pay the father money. These are rules that apparently we don't have to abide by, even though God in Deuteronomy 7:9 says he wants us to follow his commandments for 1,000 generations, which is at least 20,000 years, which we're less than 20,000 years away from the onset of Mosaic law. Amongst the rules that even Jesus specifically said we should still abide by, like the 10 Commandments, there's plenty of those that are problematic, like you should have no gods before me, which is a complete violation of the freedom of religion. So our opponents also said they're against a theocracy, But that first commandment, and the most important commandment in Christianity, imposes a theocracy. You shall have no other gods before me. So if we were to impose the number one rule in Christianity, it would turn the world into a theocracy, which our opponents say they don't want. You're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself, except for instances where you can kill them or enslave them. Yeah, all of Christianity is absolute bollocks. If we were to actually follow it, it would basically destroy the entire world. I mean, this book is chock full of the most morally bankrupt, horrible laws you could possibly imagine. It says we should stone homosexuals, we should kill people for bearing false witness, for adultery, for using the Lord's name in vain. So if I say Jesus Christ, then you should be able to kill me. But some people interpret that rule differently. So now we're battling different interpretations. So whose interpretation is right? How do we know? Well, we just have to rely on this council of mystery men who are right because they say they're right, even though they can't justify why their opinion is right and ours is wrong. Abortion is wrong according to them, except in the Bible, it says that it's okay sometimes, and God is actually the one performing abortions. Humanism says that life has value, but in Christianity, life doesn't actually have value. God gives life and God takes life away, and he gets to decide whose life has value and whose doesn't. I think Christianity is the most toxic plague on the entire world. And I'll extend that to religion in general, is the most toxic plague humanity has ever seen. We would all be better off if we abandoned this superstitious nonsense and started dealing with reality and recognizing that this is the only life that we actually get. And we need to make the most of it now and not just wait for some magical paradise that's going to exist in an afterlife that we have no actual evidence for. And with that, I'll concede my time.
Thank you. And then Godless Engineer, I'm getting you pulled up. Let me know when you're ready, and you've got 8 minutes.
All right. So I feel like Christian ethics is helplessly tied to a lot of things that we find in the Old Testament. You have Paul the Apostle deeply tying his theology to Old Testament understandings. And then you've also got Jesus in the Gospels that says that not a jot or tittle shall pass away from the law until the heaven and earth pass away. And so the New Testament Christian ethics is inextricably tied to Old Testament stuff. And even if you wanted to arbitrarily especially plead for certain sections of the Old Testament that should apply to Christian ethics, I think that our opponents tonight would probably affirm the 10 Commandments as being good. But, only a few of those commandments would actually map to anything that we could conceivably understand in modern society. And even then, we have much more solid definitions now for a number of those things. What would be bad as far as the 10 Commandments go would be the 10th commandment, saying that you shall not covet your neighbor's property, in which women are labeled as property, as well as holding chattel slaves as property, listing them amongst other pieces of property. I don't think that treating half of all of human society as property is really the best way to have a healthy and well-established society. I think that it's a way to enforce your will on a society and half of the population, but I don't think that that would really factor into the metrics of what makes a healthy society. And what we find pragmatically in in the data and in the statistics about what it means to be a healthy society full of people that are mentally well and everything is going to be a more secular society. Because as we see, with secular societies now, that those societies outperform Christian societies in several different metrics. So it seems to me like the amount of effort that our opposition tonight, Bryce and Wi-Fi, would go to in order to separate themselves from Old Testament ideas and Old Testament punishments for breaking God's sacred law, I think that they would have to affirm a number of those things. Like tonight, Wi-Fi Gospel said that he would force an 11-year-old rape child to give birth, putting them through some of the most harmful and painful experiences that an 11-year-old child could go through. But, he definitely wants to punish them. He also laid out an ethical situation, an ethical argument that would definitely lead to the wanton raping of women and forcing of birth in a society, which I would think that you would want a society that chooses to have kids instead of forcing people that don't want kids to have kids. That's how you get higher crime rates, and that's how you get a society that ranks low on the health and well-being scales that we notice across the world. So I don't think that Christian ethics can really give us a solid foundation for a healthy and stable society. I think that would be secular ethics, because secular ethics is more focused on the human factor rather than the God factor. And with that, I'll cede the rest of my time.
Thank you. And I did forget to mention, I put up the poll in my chat. I'm Breakfast Tacos, or at Real Breakfast Tacos on YouTube. I'm the host. I'll unhide myself for a second. I've been hidden for this. But I have a poll up for the debate winner. So if you think the secular side won, or if you think the Christian ethics side won, go ahead and put your opinion in that vote, because that's going to decide the winner of the debate when we finish all this. On the Christian ethics side, we have Bryce and Wi-Fi Gospel, obviously. Who's going to go ahead and take the conclusion first?
I can go first.
Perfect. Let me put you full screen. You ready?
Yeah.
You have 8 minutes.
Cool. So hearing that we are morally bankrupt from the people saying that cutting off a man's penis and killing human beings in the womb are healthcare, and that renting out your dead grandma's corpse for sex work is a morally acceptable business plan is extremely ironic. We talked a lot about slavery, which always ends up being a topic in these debates. The only reason that I was willing to talk about it so much is because their entire argument was slavery is immoral, Christian ethics supports slavery, therefore Christian ethics is bad for society. The problem that I pointed out is that saying slavery is immoral is a universal claim. They could not provide a way to punish people that would not end up as slavery. They even said that if a human is property or a slave, then they don't have rights. Well, that's interesting then, because you wouldn't be able to say that the slaves in the Bible were property, right? Because you have a misunderstanding of what that means. It doesn't mean that they don't have rights. There's literally verses in the Bible that say, if a slave is mistreated, he can flee his master and go to another home, and that home has to accept him and protect him because of what his master is doing to him. There were many rights that these slaves had. One of them even was if they came with a family, they left with their family, right? There are rights there. So if being property means they don't have rights, well, then they weren't slaves. You know what else that does? That also makes antebellum slavery not actual slaves and not property, because they had rights. There were laws on the books. Just Google it. There were laws that said you cannot just murder these people for no reason. Now, were these laws, were they enforced? Not all the time, not a lot of the time, unfortunately, but they were there. What makes a right there? It's on the law books, right? That's what you would say. So they did have rights, and their rights were being violated in some cases, sure, but they still had rights, so they couldn't be property or slaves. Any description that they gave of a slave, I could show that actually what they consider slaves would not fit that description, right? So the entire reason we talk so much about slavery is because they couldn't understand that within their own worldview, slavery is acceptable. So using that as a knock against Christianity doesn't work, and it has nothing to do with Christian ethics being bad for society. The 11-year-old rape thing. This is exactly what people take Charlie Kirk as, and they say, "Oh, see, he was an awful human being because he believed that the life in the womb was actually human and deserved to live." And so if someone was raped, then yes, the solution to this rape is not to murder another human being. It's called logical consistency, something our opponents have no idea of. A moral duty to repopulate leads to rape only under utilitarianism. So thank you for showing that secular humanism, which is based off of utilitarianism, would lead, if the util was a moral duty to repopulate, it would lead to rape. It would actually be perfectly acceptable under secular humanism to enslave women and breed them like sheep and cattle just to repopulate. That would be perfectly acceptable if the util was to repopulate. Now, the Nordic studies that Godless Engineer brought up, what he's not including is that 50% of the people there are members of the church. Now, there's a very low rate of going to church. I think it's like 10% that go monthly. But I'm not exactly sure how these people who are going to church even a couple times a year, 50% of them, are secularists. Could you explain that to me? I'm not sure how that works. Also, you could see that in the studies in those in the studies in those Nordic countries, the religious people actually score slightly higher than the secularists in self-reported life satisfaction and happiness. So this little amount of data that he wants to use in these Nordic countries that don't have big populations when compared to places like the US, it actually doesn't even work in his favor. And when you look at the studies in the US, it's significantly higher, the life satisfaction reporting for those who are religious, especially those who go to church more often, than it is for secularists. So there were 3 questions that I had. The first question, where is it? Sorry, I'm just going to my notes here. How, as a person who does not believe that God exists, can you determine which moral theory all of society ought to use in the first place? That was not answered, so we just granted them one, right? Granted them multiple. All of the ones we granted them were shown to be inconsistent and irrational. And finally, I mean, we didn't get into the studies as much as I would like. Maybe I'll make a video on the studies because I did a lot of work. Me and Bryce did a lot of work coming up with these studies and finding them. But if you just do your own research, because we don't have time to get into it now, literally on every one of the categories I listed, religious affiliation, especially Christianity, would beat out secularists in all of these, especially when we just look at happiness and life satisfaction, charity, mental health and suicide and drug addiction. Suicide rates plummet the more religious you are. It's just a fact. And last thing, I guess, on the birth rate. If you do not have a society, there is no better society. If you cannot repopulate, then you don't have a society. Now you say, well, we'll just bring immigrants in. Okay. If you bring all secularists in, right, then your birth rate still is under replacement and eventually your society will die out. If not, then you'll be bringing in religious people, or the religious people outside of your society will be continuing to repopulate and you'll be taking their children. So either way, you rely on religious people in order to repopulate your secular society. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Wi-Fi. And then Bryce, you're up last here. And once again, there is a poll on my channel where we're polling for the winner, the audience. And it's my audience is like 50-50. So your guys' audience are going to be the deciding factors here, I think. But let me, and it's at Real Breakfast Tacos if you type it in. But Bryce, let me know when you're ready and I'll start your 8-minute timer.
Yeah, sure. So I don't really have a script for the conclusion, so I'm going to kind of just filibuster instead. Regarding the actual topic of the debate in of itself, you could see how we made multiple positive accounts for the Christian ethic, whether that be something meta, whether that be something regarding analysis or data science that's been actually seen, whether that be a reductio ad absurdum to the secular position and things that they would have to forcefully affirm. We were actually able to demonstrate our position. Here's the problem with the other position. Our opponents didn't make a singular argument for secular ethics. Instead, what they did was just tried to critique Christian ethics the entire time. And the reason why that they did that is because they can't actually justify their own system. Considering that when I pushed on them multiple times, especially about things like the harm principle, or we talked about certain different meta-ethical principles, for example, that actually determine these things to be right and wrong, they either didn't have an answer for these things or they would just admit the subjectivity. Like, for example, when Jed was talking about the harm principle, right? He said that the harm principle was the absolute grounding, right, for just determining something as right and wrong. It's so the biggest factor. But then when we actually look at the principles that determine something to be harm, he admitted that those values themselves are subjective. I think in a pretty standard logical deduction, if the principles for a principle or a foundation are subjective, then therefore the principle in of itself is subjective. It's very, very simple deduction there. So they already had to admit then that harm itself is actually subjective. meaning that pretty much any kind of critique that they attempt to make against the Christian worldview doesn't actually, first off, doesn't purport to whether or not something is better for society or not, because they can't even ground what harm is in the first place. They just say that it's something, it's based off of certain principles like life being better than death, which they admitted was subjective. Another thing I want to admit, obviously, is that through some of these reductias, of course, like they can go ahead and mention the Old Testament all they want, but we showed them that there's specific interpretations that apply to these verses in the Old Testament, like covenant theology, especially regarding certain laws. Some of them were done for specific moral reasons of that time due to the way that the ancient world actually performed. The way that people were around Israel, right, was much worse than the way that Israel performed. So then Israel simply just had to adjust to a degree. So another thing I'm trying to remember here specifically, because I'm kind of just like going off of the dome for the whole debate. Another thing regarding like with Godless Engineer, for example, when we were talking about different types of when we were making very specific arguments, you notice how the opponents, actually not even just Godless, honestly, made extreme strawmans to our position pretty much every 5 seconds. Every time that we would say something, they would have to basically just be like, so you affirm blah, blah, blah. And it's like completely not actually what we were talking about. And it's actually demonstrated multiple times when we talked about certain ethical principles. And I had to say, oh, go ahead. Tell me how it leads to that. Oh, how did you possibly get that from what I just said? Right. They don't actually understand our position at all. They personally interpret the Bible, and then they attempt to basically determine what Christian ethics is based off of their subjective framework that nobody cares about anyway. We showed the data science. They literally admitted, by the way, Godless Engineer literally admitted that if a position or if a society was solidly secular with the current data that we have right now, and it was isolationist, that it would literally disappear. It would be wiped out. And he admitted himself that that actually doesn't determine whether or not a society flourishes or not. I think that that determined that he conceded the entire debate, saying that a society can completely disappear and that actually doesn't determine societal flourishing. That in of itself should show you that secular ethics is an absolutely ridiculous position to hold to. Not to mention as well that every time that we would actually get into something that's complicated in any way, and we use we talked about anything complicated, right? Or like for example, controversial regarding like the left and the right and things like that. All they did was just crash out. You guys are fucking bigots. Dude, no one cares. We're talking about whether or not something's good for society. I don't care about your personal opinion. Let's actually get into the ethics and the meta ethics itself. Let's see what's right and what's wrong. Well, that didn't end up happening from their side. They didn't make a single argument for secular ethics. We made multiple positive arguments. We critiqued their position multiple times, showed why that this position is actually better than their position. And the only thing that they had for us was basically just trying to do reductios on our position. They had no positive accounts for their own position. And the one time that they brought up the harm principle, they basically just completely conceded that it doesn't matter anyway. And there is no ought from the is. I can see the rest of my time on that.
Thank you. And one last time, I'm going to give it about 5 more minutes for the poll. It's literally 50-50 right now. Breakfast tacos or at real breakfast tacos on YouTube if you're typing it in the YouTube window. But yeah, it's literally 50-50 right now. This was a very strong showing on both sides for the bloodbath debate. Let me get this a little bit more organized. But this was a very, very strong showing, people. I appreciate you all hanging out here and having this. We will give audience members the opportunity to come up here shortly. If y'all want to stick around and talk with some audience members, feel free to. We have 10 spots on here, so there's 5 additional spots. The audience kick and mute rules will be in effect. The host will be immune to those, though, or not the host, but myself and the debaters will be immune to that, right? So these 4 will be immune to that. So if you absolutely despise one of the guests that's chatting with them, feel free to kick them. We'll go over those rules here in a minute. There was one more super chat that popped up in the middle of that as well. Numbers 522. So I've got that pulled up right now in the favored translation of the channel, which is the Hawaiian Pidgin. I like faux diswada dat put kahuna on top of you, go inside yo opa, fo make yo belly swell up, and yo privates come any kind. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Well, you said something after too.
Oh yes, yes.
No, what else did he say?
Sorry, I was hitting the other window. And the women shall say, "Amen, amen." What damn ass thinks this is abortion? And thank you so much for the super chat, Roland. I think that. Let me see. We've got 3 minutes left, 3 minutes left on the vote. So if anybody else wants to vote, feel free to. It's youtube.com/@realbreakfasttacos. It's 51 or 52 to 48. So this is a very close vote, people. This is the first mega bloodbath we've done so far. I would like to get y'all's thoughts on this. Was this a fun and enjoyable format for y'all?
I had a great time. I liked it.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. It's literally 50-50 right now. So the best thing about the bloodbath debates is once a winner is declared, the winning side will be able to choose a Bible verse each. So can I get y'all's Bible verses ahead of time just so I can be prepared to read those? Godless Engineer first.
Numbers 31:17 to 18.
31:17 to 18. Okay. And Spaghetti Auditor.
Let's go Deuteronomy 20 verses 16 through 17.
And Bryce.
You're muted.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't realize that. John 3:16.
You stole my verse, dog. I didn't have time to think.
All right. And Wi-Fi Gospel.
Can you read a verse twice?
I can.
Yeah, let's do it.
Those are all
You can do a different
excellent.
translation.
Those are all
Not the
excellent
pigeon.
choices in the favored translation of the channel. I'd say every
Tell you what,
Bible.
I'll change mine. Actually, do John 1 verses 1 through 3.
There you go.
1 to 3. I like the Hawaiian pigeon.
Could we respond to
personally.
the could we respond to that super chat about
Absolutely,
numbers?
absolutely. We've
5?
got a few minutes. I just don't want to skip
Yeah.
the time on them, right? So absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. So they asked what dumbass thinks this is abortion. The translation they're using where it says thy belly to swell and thy thigh to rot. Other translations say and make your womb miscarry. So it seems like he's intentionally picking a translation which is using a euphemism. The belly swelling, that's just a euphemism for having a miscarriage.
Yeah, I don't know the actual translation, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
Not a Hebrew dude.
Gotcha. And so right now the poll is at 47 for secular ethics and 53 for Christian ethics. There is 1 minute remaining. So let's get those votes in. Oh, it's changing. 54. All right, guys, let's get those votes in. We've got a minute remaining. Now, I'll enable the additional. I have some additional stuff. Who is going to be sticking around for a little bit for the audience portion? Just
I can stay for about half hour.
If I don't go to bed after this, my wife's gonna kill me.
Cool.
I'll stick around a little bit.
So we've got Flying Spaghetti Auditor and Wi-Fi Gospel and G and Bryce. It looks like y'all are going to bed.
Yeah, I'm going to bed.
Cool. I get it. It's late. I'm going to be up a while. And so I'm enabling the thing on the mute. So like I said, if you guys absolutely despise an audience member when they come up, feel free to, kick the audience member or mute them, whatever.
Can I just get 2 minutes to read the super chats on my end? I'm just going to back out for a sec.
Absolutely. We do have a winner, though.
Okay.
The Christian ethics was declared the winner with 53% versus 47% with secular ethics. So congratulations to the Christian side. That we will be reading these Bible verses real quick, and then you can go ahead and read your super chats out if you'd like. So we have John 1 to 3. From before the time when everything had one guy. He the one tell us people how foe come alive inside foe real kind.
I'm gonna take that off so I can't hear him. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate you. I'm gonna stick around for like another half hour, but I'll read these super chats while I get the chance. Wi-Fi. I know I was muted for my opening. I'm gonna have to cut that out. It'll just be Bryce's opening on the replay. Thank you for the $2, Snake. Appreciate you. Thank you for the $2, Mr. Fist. Oh boy, you lads better smoke these Reddit mods. This is already embarrassing. Thank you for the $10. Appreciate you. And hopefully we did you guys good. I think we did. Cool, Vic. What up, dog? Thank you so much for the $5. Appreciate you showing support. My man, Richie. If stoning children is wrong, why are these atheists pro-choice? Exactly. Thank you, Richie, for the $5. Atheists, and they're 6% of the population. Yeah. I don't understand how these guys think they can just repopulate the earth. Nice critique, Wi-Fi. Thank you for the $10, Richie, with the 2 5s. Appreciate you. Nice critique, Wi-Fi. Can you ask if morality is only what helps human beings survive? Then why do we admire martyrs who die for truth or strangers? It's a great question. I didn't see it, unfortunately, but I totally would have asked that. Thank you for the $5. Jed, our prisoner saints. I'm going to show Jim Bob that. He'll get a kick out of it. Oh, thanks for the $5 again, Richie. Really appreciate your support. Snake. These guys are snakes. No pun intended. Absolutely. Especially Godless, man. I mean, I thought we were on good terms, but the virtue signaling is crazy. Thank you for the super chats, guys. Really appreciate you.
So,
Hit me up on Discord.
yeah, sure. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much for being here.
Later, Bryce.
By the way, Bryce, if you ever want to do a one-on-one debate, you seem like a worthy adversary. I'd be up for that if you are.
I'd love to conversate with you. I had a great discussion with you. I felt like we were men sitting in armchairs discussing like Sam Harris and William Lane Craig for a little bit there. So I think it'd be pretty good. But yeah, sure. I'll hit you up too. I'll find out how to get in contact with you.
Yeah, it's just breakfast tacos on Discord, spelled exactly the same way.
I was talking with Jed.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize. I'm
sure. Well, you can find me on
managing multiple-
Instagram at Flying Spaghetti Auditor. There you can send me a message and we can set something up.
All right, cool. Sounds good, man.
Well, and we've got everybody's links also to their YouTube in the description. I think it pulled it through on y'all's channels too, who are restreaming.
Subscribe to me. I had the #1 Christian who was left behind from the rapture the other day. Still preached. See you later.
So if anybody liked anything anybody said, make sure you subscribe to them. And Wi-Fi, you wanted to read out some super chats. I'll go ahead and put the guest invite thing in the chat, so anybody who wants to pop on stage can pop on stage.
What I did was I popped out and read them on my end to my guy. I didn't want to read them on your channel.
No worries.
But I appreciate it.
No, I was showing the chats from all the channels anyways. So
okay.
And I'm putting the link to the live chat or hang on. Please join the panel in the chat right now. So if you'd like to join the channel or the restream, make sure you hit the link. It works best on computers, so please don't join on a cell phone if it's avoidable. You probably will get disconnected, especially if you're a theist. Most theists get disconnected constantly by their guardian angels. So if there's any proof for God ever or evidence for God ever in relation to this, it has to be that every theist on a phone gets disconnected. Just say it. We've got Kurt. We've got Adrian. I don't know Basil. Basil, can you wave at the camera just so that I know you're... Can you stand up just so I can see you have pants on? I'm not joking.
What?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right.
What up, Basil and Adrian? I saw you last time, right?
You said
I think so. I think I seen you up. I think I seen you up here before. I never seen Jed though, or Basil. It's my first time seeing y'all. What's good, gentlemen?
Hey, what's going on?
I'm a friend of Bryce's and Wi-Fi Gospel, so had to come up and represent a little bit.
Yes, sir.
And Mr.
I think
Kurt,
I-
salute, sir.
And I do
Good
need
to
to
see
call
you.
it. I do need to call it. Sorry, I'm managing a bunch right now. And so there was also a super chat from Nobody on Fire. He said, "Chad's for the goal." Thank you so much, Nobody on Fire. You're amazing. And welcome, Doc. Welcome, Basil. Welcome, Adrian.
What's up,
Welcome,
Doc?
Kurt.
Mr.
Kurt, nice to meet
Tacos,
you.
thanks for having me on.
Dude in the back, can you hear me? Dude, can you hear me? I have you hidden right now.
What
I'm
up,
gonna
Dut?
put him in the back. All right. So we've got a little bit of a panel. Go, oh, Duck, come on. We've got a little bit of put a shirt on, dude. You're not Minar.
Duck definitely wins the beard contest, though. Damn, look at that luscious beard.
I wish I could grow something like that. I can't.
I gotta get my game up, man. I gotta, you know.
You got to put a light on so we
Wi-Fi
can
still
see the
has me
beard.
beat right now.
I
I
saw in
just
the live
trimmed it not
chat
so
there
long
was
ago.
a beard competition. People were ranking our beards.
Really?
in the live chat.
Oh yeah, I obviously have the best one, right?
Wi-Fi, you won the beard contest.
Did I?
Or-
Nice.
From what I saw.
You might have the cleanest one since it's just shaved, so you know.
All right.
I-
So this is the audience engagement portion. So if y'all have any questions for anybody, feel free to. Normal channel rules are in effect except for the debaters. The debaters are immune. So boom. They're on the screen right now. I've also got them in the live chat. So if you hate a guest, take them off, mute them, whatever. It's all in your control, except for Wi-Fi and Jed.
I got a question for Wi-Fi.
What's up, Duck? How are you?
Also, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Yeah, good to see you, Alex. Yeah, so you brought up homeschooling. I forgot the context a little bit, but I wanted to run by reality with you.
I don't remember bringing it up, but I
am.
am willing to talk about it.
Okay, so in the 1970s, like late 60s, 1970s was when homeschooling reemerged in the US, and it was largely driven by people maybe making a valid point, that but they were crazy like agrarian Christian like doomsdayers, right? You know, it was this very like hyper evangelical movement, which I think you do understand. And so, you know, when I think of Christian ethics, it's like, well, maybe there's a needle in a haystack there, but how in any sense is Christianity capable of managing what is like an uprising against public education when the points that they make are really about their worldview? And not only is it about their worldview, but it's about aspects of their worldview which just don't represent reality.
Well, I mean, if I understand your question, I think that homeschooling is much different in the time we live in now, right? I mean, the internet got popular 25 years ago, starting maybe a little bit earlier than that. And
Right.
I think
agree.
that, yeah, with the internet, homeschooling is much different. I mean, the access to resources is much, much better. I honestly
Yeah.
think that even, you know, I don't know how many people homeschool like this, but you could literally sit your child, depending on how old they are, in front of a computer for 6 hours a day. And I almost think that that is more conducive to learning than being in a classroom with 30 people. Like a lot of, you know, online colleges and stuff, you can get a whole degree online. So I think there's definitely a good place for homeschool. But specifically,
That doesn't respond to that.
Yeah,
that doesn't
I don't
respond to
know.
any of the points
Could
about
you go
crazy
through them?
doomsdayers.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
think that
so-
maybe during that time.
So do you know John Mondragon? John Mondragon, he's an ortho bro, but he literally told me in a debate about homeschooling he wanted to be able to indoctrinate his kids. And so you know, that's it. Just to kind of cut through it, if I wasn't clear in the question, which I maybe wasn't, you know, I'm asking about, you know, how does Christian ethics handle parents that want to indoctrinate their kids?
I think that it's perfectly acceptable to indoctrinate your children. I think that if you want the best for your child, you will indoctrinate them with what you think is best, which is your own worldview.
That's weak. That's soft as fuck, Alex.
I mean, I think
Sorry.
that we already indoctrinate our children. It's either you let the state indoctrinate your children or you do it.
I don't know what that means, to be honest.
Like public school. Public school is indoctrination. There's no
I
debate.
don't
There's
see
no
it that way.
pushback.
I don't see it.
What?
I don't
Well,
see it that
let me
way.
ask,
I took ceramics. I took ceramics and classical guitar. I got some AP credits in high school. I went to both community and state schools. I went to private school as well, which was cool. I went to a Catholic school. I don't think religious schools or at least Catholic schools are an indoctrination, and public schools are not indoctrination.
Well, no,
That's
I'm
just
saying
not accurate.
all of them are forms of indoctrination. That's what education is. You're teaching somebody a worldview.
No, you're not. But thank you. That was my question.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I would
Hayden
say,
will-
I mean, I don't think education and indoctrination are exactly the same thing. I think education should be the teaching of children facts about reality and not things that aren't demonstrably true. Just as a personal anecdote, I was actually homeschooled until 6th grade, and then I went to a public school. And while I think that, for people who are homeschooled, there are basically you go to a public school or you have them send you certain standardized tests to make sure that you're staying up to date with the school. I'm sure everyone here has taken standardized tests. When you're homeschooled, you're basically representing your whole school. So if you're not staying in line with your, with your grade level, then they'll either hold you back or force you to go to a public school. And I think that there should probably be some more accountability besides one standardized test per year to make sure that kids are getting a proper education, especially since these standardized tests are kind of garbage for anyone that's actually taken them. So
Are those the ones you're talking about where it's like, wait, you're not in America, are you?
I am, yeah.
Oh, you are. I don't know why I thought you were from Canada. My bad. But in America, or at least in my area in the Northeast, we have these standardized tests, but I just learned that they actually affected my grade 0. And they were more, they were just like to see where everybody was at, but they pushed it on us like this is important. And I didn't realize
the standardized test, if you're in a public school, it's a representative of how the whole school is performing. But when you're homeschooled, you are the entire school. So there's a lot more weight. So you could be like you're either held back or you're forced to go to a public school if you perform poorly. But when you're in public school, you're right. Your test scores don't really matter because you're just one person whose reflection on the school isn't a good representation of the school at large.
Yeah.
It's also going to affect like college entry also. So it does have individual value to itself too.
I heard that, or my experience in public school, I was starting in like middle school. I started just not caring about school, more caring about friends and, hanging out with friends, chasing girls, partying, right? Especially in high school. And so my experience was, I don't know if it was just the curriculum itself, or maybe I had a better ability to I could ace tests without really paying attention in school and doing 0 homework. So I would barely pass because homework affects your grades. And
Lucky
all that,
you.
right? But eventually I just decided to drop out and get a job because I didn't see the value in it. Now I probably, looking back, would have liked to go to college and maybe have a different career. The career I have is good income, but it's not like I like to do more intellectual things. I do hard labor now. Nothing wrong with hard labor. But my whole point is, it does seem very much, especially as a child gets older, way more up to the child himself and how he does, whether it's homeschool or public school.
I never been homeschooled before. It's always been public school, got some college in and all that. My question is to the homeschoolers. What is like, did y'all get specific tutors? Like, or did your moms and pops go and teach you different subjects? Like, how was that learning from y'all? And how can y'all say like that was great learning for your upbringing? Just me being curious.
Yeah, when I was homeschooled, for me, my mom was my primary teacher. And the curriculum was, I mean, we did most of your basic stuff, math, science, reading, history. I think my sister's program that she started in high school after I was already in public school was a lot better. She went to a program called The Network, which was a Christian program, but essentially it was like a private school 1 day a week on Monday, and then they would give you a week's worth of homework that you complete on your own. So then you don't have to rely on just one parent to be the sole teacher. Instead, you have a whole host of teachers, like a regular school 1 day a week, and then you're just self-taught through the textbook the other days. And I think the system like that is probably a lot better than just exclusive parents doing all the teaching, because a lot of parents are inept and probably pretty horrible at being teachers and shouldn't be. Thankfully, my mom was pretty
Right.
good. When I ended up going to public school, I had a significantly higher reading level than all my classmates. And then I slowly started to even out with them as the years progressed. So,
Okay.
although I will say public school was way better for my social development. So I
I
one
would
thing
think
you miss
so.
out on when you're homeschooled is you don't really interact with other kids that much outside of church in my case. So being able to form friendships was huge. And I'm incredibly glad that I did go to public school and form some really close friendships with people I'm still in contact with.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, because I wasn't homeschooled, but I went to Catholic school, and so
Okay.
the main difference was we had a couple really good teachers. My geometry teacher was like this Harvard PhD polyglot mathematics. He spoke like 8 languages, and then we also had a religion class, and so that was pretty cool. We did have that religion class, every year. And we read Dante's Inferno. And so, but other than that, I learned biology, I learned evolution, I learned physics, not very well, but I learned those things at Catholic school.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, Jed, can I ask you a question?
Real fast before we go into that. Hey, I do have 2 super chats I need to address. So Hayden Walton, this looks like this is a comment. Feel free to address or ignore it. A divine command theory is clearly the superior system. By the way, God just told me to give me all your money.
I would like to make a comment, but I think if you want to go to Kurt first, you want me to make the comment first?
You can make
If
a
the
comment
comments,
if
if
you'd
the
like.
question to me is in regards to homeschool, maybe we do that first and then head to the super chat.
It is not about homeschooling.
All right, so real quick, divine command theory doesn't mean that we have private revelation.
Oh, okay. And then Nobody on Fire says all education is indoctrination, is flat Earth level of
Go,
denial
baby.
of academic integrity.
Let's go. Let's
Well
go.
And as usual, I can't read super chats properly, so
Let's go.
have fun with that if you want. I can never read the bright percentage.
Duck like that one, apparently.
Didn't really give an argument. It's just stating a claim, saying, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
no, like, just a claim."
I
Sometimes
want
it
to hear
makes
in chat. I want to hear in
Did
chat
you pray?
where the right wingers, where are you
Did
guys
you
at?
pray?
It's indoctrination. Yeah, praying
you-
thoughts and prayers.
Did you
What's
pray
up?
in Catholic school?
Did I
Good
pray
evening,
in Catholic
Donnie.
school?
What up?
When I went to Catholic school
Yeah,
for
I
3 months,
stopped by my junior year. So I was very devout. I mean, I was an altar server. I got great grades, but I couldn't believe. I didn't think the common sense stuff. I didn't believe religion had staying power, other than like Catholic social justice. And so I deconverted. I stopped. I didn't like saying like on God, I think is the phrase in the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, I was angry about the war in Iraq. I was one of the people that didn't understand it. I felt that Christians drove a violent response. So I was upset. This was high school for me.
so when I went to Catholic school, I was only there for about 3 months. I actually got expelled for trading Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But in the beginning of the day, we would pray to Mary along with the allegiance to the flag. And I was a Protestant growing up. My grandfather was a Protestant pastor, so we went to his church. And so we were taught, praying to Mary is a no-go. So I would just not pray to Mary, and I would get in trouble for that, right? So is that kind of a form of indoctrination?
I would say absolutely. Yeah. If
Yes,
you're forcing
yes,
children
that's
to pray,
yeah,
then that is
yes.
indoctrination.
I think we could extrapolate that onto all sorts of behaviors you're supposed to do in school that if you don't adhere to those behaviors, you would get in trouble for. That could be a form of indoctrination.
For certain ones, sure. Like saying the
and-
Pledge of Allegiance, for example, I would consider that indoctrination.
Well, if you consider that indoctrination, then all public schools were some form of indoctrination, some level
I
of
can
it,
semi-agree with that too.
up until a certain point. I don't think they all make you say the Pledge of
Actually,
Allegiance anymore.
there is no way
I grew up
a child
saying
can be
the Pledge
forced
of
to
Allegiance.
say the
Me too.
pledge. The Supreme Court decided this a long time ago. The pledge is not a mandated thing.
Gotcha.
I think
When-
it's fair
when
to
was
say
that
that
decision?
public schools include some indoctrination, but they're not exclusively indoctrination, nor would I even claim they're a majority indoctrination.
Yeah, so I don't think anybody homeschooling would just all they're doing is indoctrination. But I think at the root of every worldview is some claim that will be indoctrinated. Like every public school, or maybe not every, most public schools teach evolution.
I don't agree with
Because
that.
that's a demonstrable fact about reality.
Right. And so who gets to decide that that's a demonstrable fact about reality?
Well, reality decides that. No human being decides that. I mean, that's
You
what
see
the research
how
shows.
that's a worldview?
It's not a worldview.
Yeah. You're saying reality gets to decide that. Packed into that statement is a huge metaphysical commitment.
Well,
No,
sure. I
there
suppose
isn't,
there's
but-
an inherent
There's no metaphysical
subjection to
commitment.
reality. Like, I think schools should teach the facts of reality to students and our
Okay.
current best scientific understanding about how the world operates. And I
Are
wouldn't
there-
You're
consider
gonna
that
have to educate me on
indoctrination.
some
That's just good,
metaphysics.
good
It's the
education.
metaphysical commitment that you can look at stuff and figure stuff out about it, which I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, if you think that's a deep thing.
Yeah,
that's
it's
a deep thing.
empiricism.
Yeah, right. It's
Okay. So empiricism
pretty
is
much
more
what everybody
epistemic.
is starting with. No
Okay,
matter
so
who they
if
are, they always start with, I can look at stuff and figure it out myself by thinking
So
about it. That
if
is
I was a
literally how all
relativist-
children learn.
If I was a relativist and I believed that reality was ultimately subjective, that there were no objective facts, and I sent my kids to public school and I didn't want them to believe it, I wanted them to believe what I believe. Would that be indoctrination?
If you kept your kids at home and indoctrinated them into thinking that there are no objective facts about reality, then yes, that is indoctrination.
Okay,
Alex,
so
just a dad
someone
I
who's
agree
in
with
public
that
school-
then.
Alex, a dad response too is if you are a person who is so fucking dumb that you don't understand relativism in the context of other things, then no offense, but what are we actually talking about? I don't think we're talking about indoctrination, right? Is that like that person's
no.
core?
The
You know,
state
is that
gets to
part of their
decide what is
worldview?
true. The state gets to decide which worldview is true, and this is the worldview we will teach your children. That is
Well, the
indoctrination.
state shouldn't decide what is true. The science and observation about reality should decide what is true.
Who decides which textbooks go into the school?
Oh well, it seems like the Department of Education or lack thereof right now.
Right, the state.
And I think the Department of Education has a duty to put textbooks in school which provide children with our current best understanding about how the world works.
Okay, but they don't.
Yeah, that's a problem because of our current administration.
Okay, so current.
Ding,
So
ding, ding.
I decide to take my kids out of public school because of the current administration, and I don't agree with what they're doing, and I bring them home and teach them opposite of what the school is teaching in those areas. Is that indoctrination?
No.
Okay, so it's either some form of indoctrination at home and at school, or it's neither.
Yeah,
I think
Jen,
it's
can I
it's a
tell
little
you
bit of
about
both.
my
So it's a
thing
little
before you have to
indoctrination
go to
and it's a
bed?
little bit of good education. It should be probably.
Yeah, I mean,
in both
yeah.
cases.
Yeah, and I think
I
that is
I
the
say
case.
I lean toward good education because you're taking them away from the bull that they're trying to educate you up in public school.
So that's what
In my
I think.
opinion.
I think bringing someone into homeschool, there is some indoctrination based on your own worldview at home,
What's up, Austin?
and there's some things that necessarily we all agree on when we could say is not indoctrination because we all agree on it. We all agree that this is the facts of reality. And I'm not saying that's what
tough.
makes it the fact of
That-
reality, but
But I don't think it's indoctrination to answer questions that your kids ask, not like strictly. And sort of the reason is that in the first place, kids are curious, they form beliefs. People often change their beliefs. And it's often even not clear that before prefrontal cortex is developed, most importantly, it's just not always clear that a belief means the same thing that we mean by like an adult belief or, right. And so it's not like some I don't believe in most cases, even though I'm an atheist, even though I'm an atheist with religion and, all that, I don't think like Christians have to hold on to the fact that because I hate Christianity so much, that doesn't mean
Dang,
that I
bro.
think you're indoctrinating your kids.
I think here's a good example of a difference between education and indoctrination. So if a student asks their teacher, does God exist? I think any good teacher should have an obligation to not say, oh, yes, God does exist and it's this one, or no, there are no gods. I think any good teacher should say, well, here's some common arguments used in favor of God, and here's the rebuttals, and you're going to have to decide that for yourself, because I'm in no position to be telling you if there's a God or not, because that's not something that's been scientifically verified.
Okay, so what about if they ask the
Religion should
teacher
be
if a
separate
woman has a
from
penis?
school.
What was the question, Wi-Fi?
What if they ask their teacher if a woman has a penis?
They should say that some trans women certainly could have a penis. Yeah.
Right,
What
and
Because
science
transgender,
decided
whether you're a
that.
man or a woman, just depends on how you identify.
Are they
Okay,
asking?
but before we get off on this, I just have a specific thing I want to get. And I did want to ask you this, Jed, before you have to go.
Sure, go ahead.
Their argument about the fecundity rate stuff, like you guys did handle it, I thought, quite well, but you did not mention the like self-castration text in Matthew or the commands against getting married and having kids in the Pauline epistles. I'm wondering what kept you from going that direction.
It's not even what it says.
The honest reason I'm not super familiar with those passages.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's
That
not what
makes
even
sense.
that's not even what it says. It's not. A
It's literally he
No,
who
it's
has
not.
a message for it can cut off his own balls. It's in Matthew.
And guess what? And guess what? In the Council of Nicaea, in the canons, condemn self-castration. So do your research.
Wow. Why do you think they had to condemn it, Basil?
Yeah,
I never
because
have to
people were
condemn it.
taking it super literal, like an idiot like you.
Yeah,
That's
people
exactly
were
why.
cutting
Because
off
idiot-
their
because-
balls in the
because
early
idiot,
church.
because idiots
Yeah,
like you
not really
would
practical.
actually take that seriously.
So you have to be an idiot to take the Bible literally. Got
I
it.
mean,
Thank you.
as Christians, we shouldn't be calling anybody idiots worth nothing. You feel me? That's just my opinion. You know what I mean? We should be
What about
demeaning
snakes?
anybody,
What about
quick,
in
vipers?
my opinion.
I don't mean to
But
jump
Paul
in. real quick.
clearly says don't have kids.
Maybe
Paul
misunderstood.
says
That's
that.
not what he says. He says, "I wish all of you would be like me, because chastity is a self humbleness and a way of purity." So I don't know what you're talking about, because
Well, if everybody
monasticism
is
is a big.
chaste,
Hold on.
guess who will
Hold
have
on.
kids?
Hold on. Wait. I'm not finished. You're kind of cutting me off, because monasticism is actually a big focal point in Christian history. If you actually knew the
Yeah.
history of Christianity and knew the
Not really
context of what
pro-natal.
Paul was even talking about, because Paul was actually a monastic. So was John the Baptist. But you don't know these stuff.
I absolutely know that. And
But
my
you
point
know
is,
that.
the
So
New
then,
Testament is
in the
very
context,
anti-natal.
why are you trying to?
He was literally talking. He was literally talking. Cutting him off. What were you
Don't
saying?
white
Joe?
knight.
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
My point is
Well, here's a
that
question.
in Christian theology, there is a very strong antinatalism. The apostles Andrew and the apostles Philip were both killed by rulers who were mad because their wives had been told to no longer have sex with them.
What?
Where's the evidence for that?
That is the only evidence we have for them being
Give the
martyred.
evidence.
Do you
What are you talking
believe-
about? Give the evidence.
Do you believe the apostles were martyred or not?
Give the evidence for
Yeah,
the
martyred
exact
for
for
Christ.
them exactly what you claimed.
It's in the
It's in where?
Christian tradition that talks
Yeah,
about
where?
Show
the
me the
apostles
tradition.
being
Show
martyred.
me the tradition.
where?
Show me the tradition of their martyrdom that said that.
In the Acts of Andrew and the Acts of Philip. Are you
Acts of Andrew
familiar
and
with your
Acts of Philip.
church's tradition?
100%. So show me that.
Acts of Andrew and Acts of Philip.
Where?
Right?
Where at in those passages?
When they were executed by the
Okay, show me the quotes. Show me the
Well,
quote.
you want
You're
a
not providing the
specific quote?
evidence.
How about you just look up the book, dude? It's not
But-
my job to do your
Yeah, look
research.
up his source for him.
Yeah, I got you. I'll look up your own source for you, bro.
Yeah,
Since you
go
can't do
ahead
it.
because that's what they say.
Speaking
But
of antinatalism, Wi-Fi, do you think, or any Christian, do you think that if a Christian can have kids, they have an obligation to
no.
Have an obligation to do what?
have
No,
kids?
I think there is a duty to provide yourself in service. And I think that hold on. Service can look
duty.
different. So I think that if you're not going to enter monastic life, then yes, you should consider getting married and having children. Because being single for singleness sake is actually selfish. But if you're going to remain single, and it's out of your hand, and it's not out of your hands remaining single, then you should consider entering monastic life.
Why is remaining single selfish?
To remain single for singleness sake. So if you just want to remain single because you don't want the responsibility of a spouse, you don't want the responsibility of children, and you don't want the responsibility of serving the church in a monastic life, then I think you're shirking responsibility.
I mean, some people. I'm just saying. I mean, I know some people that just want to be single and just mingle. You feel me? So they don't want to. They don't want to. And they don't want to just stay with one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just how they. That's just how they roll. So I feel where you're coming from, but I mean, speaking from a marriage perspective, it's like, hey, I got my one and I'm done. That's just what it is. So I'm trying to see what his question, what Jeff's question was, where he was coming from, so I could completely understand.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is like if Christians have an obligation to say get married and have kids, then
Right.
what kind of example was Jesus setting by not getting married and having kids?
Well, he actually did get married and in a sense have kids. He was married to the church. And
well, I'm married to my phone, okay, but that's not an actual marriage.
well, what is marriage based off of then?
Marriage is a commitment you make to another human being.
Okay, and where does that come from?
It's something that humans have made up.
All right, so if I can just make up what marriage is, then Jesus just made up what marriage is, and he married the church, and therefore he was married.
Well, I mean, you can't just. So when we talk about any word, we have to agree on a definition. So if you're just arbitrarily changing the definition of marriage to mean something different, then sure, everyone's married.
What did you arbitrarily choose the definition of marriage to be?
I didn't choose the definition. I'm using what I understand almost everyone using the definition of marriage to be being a commitment between.
Why do you think he had to be married with
humans.
kids, though? Why do you think Jesus had to do it, though?
I'm not
Had
saying
to do
that.
it
I
the
was
way
just
you
asking.
want to. No, but I'm asking you, why is it that you feel Jesus had to
Because a
have
shepherd should
had to
lead
be
by
married?
example, right?
I do have to
I
be out in
guess
10
I
minutes.
guess Jesus had a hall pass for this duty as the Messiah. He had like a exempt from the duty.
But I just said that we didn't have that duty.
Yeah, and well, let's
Yeah,
say
a
because
universal
Wi-Fi said
duty.
we didn't have
Let me-
an obligation to have kids, so it's kind of a
let me-
moot point. But
let me jump in here, Wi-Fi, because I'll grant you that Jesus was married to the church. Doesn't that equate to being married to God? So
God
Jesus
is
married
not the
himself.
church.
I mean, well, what does it mean to be married to the church then? What does that mean?
Yeah, there is one church, right? And
Yeah.
in order to be married to the church, he was the church's groom, right? He ushered the church into his home, into heaven. Actually, Basil is Orthodox. He would have probably a better answer for that on mine, but that's the way I understand it.
And Nobody on Fire has a comment for Jed. He says he was spiritually married, just like how we spiritually pay our taxes.
Yeah, so here's the we spiritually pay our taxes thing. In order to answer something and say we spiritually pay our taxes, just assumes that spirituality isn't a thing, which is ultimately coming from a naturalistic, materialist worldview.
So to my point, though,
wait, let me have Basil answer real quick. Basil, what is the purpose of Jesus marrying the church? What does that represent?
The purpose of Jesus marrying to the church is that he's reconciling all who come to the church in baptism to God the Father. He's being the bride that brings the bridegroom to paradise.
Well, I guess I'm confused by what you mean by the church then. What is the church in this? Is it the tradition? Is it the flock? Is it God? What is the church?
The believers in Christ.
The church is going to be the body. It's going to be the body of believers who has
the body of believers.
So Jesus was a
I don't want to be
I'm not
provocative, but does that technically
I'm not finished with my answer.
Does
I'm
that
not finished with my answer. I'm not finished with my answer. Will you let me finish, please? Thank you. The church is going to be a body of believers who is under an Episcopalian authority of bishops, presbyters, and deacons that all have laid on hands from the apostles, that have something called apostolic succession, which includes the laying on of hands and continuation of true doctrine.
Does that technically mean that every male Christian is gay married to Jesus?
Yeah, that sounds like polygamy with extra steps to me.
Gay polygamy or bisexual polygamy.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
I'm not attracted to no male whatsoever, so that is not a part of me at all.
Critique, bro.
And those cheekbones?
Did you see Jesus' washboard abs up on the cross? I mean, he gets me wet.
Yeah.
Y'all funny. So.
I think it's interesting when people
Uh,
say that, oh, their marriage is between three people, themselves, their wife, and Jesus. So it's like they have a
That is corny.
throuple relationship, and then
Mhm.
Jesus is like in the bedroom watching them have sex. The whole thing is kind of creepy, I think.
They put a
No.
cuck chair in the room for Jesus.
Hey,
he's
real quick.
already in a
Hey,
same-sex
to Kurt
relationship
earlier,
and
who
continue.
talked about the Acts of Andrew. If you actually read the first part of the Acts of Andrew, what it stated is the reason of his martyrdom was he was destroying the temple of the pagan gods. So, like, nice try there, bro. Really good try there.
No, that's not why he was
Oh,
executed.
that's not why? Do you need me to show? Because I just quoted it to you. He was destroying the temple. He was destroying the temples of the pagan gods.
You're
That's
reading
why
I've got
he
a
was
question
martyred.
for Wi-Fi.
What's
So
up?
in our
I only have a
debate,
few more
you
minutes, by the way.
mentioned how Wi-Fi. You mentioned how I was misinterpreting the verse in Deuteronomy 22 where it says a rapist must be forced to marry his victim and pay the father. So what's the misinterpretation I'm doing?
Yeah, so earlier in the verse, it literally shows.
Nobody on fire threw a chair from the audience at Basil for 2 minutes.
Don't quote sources; you'll get muted. So yeah, the word. So there's multiple lines here. The verses previous actually show what happens when someone gets raped. The man is put to death. So then to flip it on its head from assuming the same author and literally the same passages, to then go and say, well, if the woman wasn't married, if she gets raped, then it's not the same crime. When literally in the passages, it relates rape to like a man breaking into someone's house and murdering them. Now the word rape
Well, the distinction in different types of rape it makes is whether it happens in the city or the country.
That's
so
not
it says
the
if a
distinction.
woman is raped in a country, then the rapist should be put to death because no one could hear her scream. But if she gets raped in a city, then she should have been screaming. So then there's no punishment.
Well, it implies that it wasn't rape.
That's what I recall from reading it.
It literally
What if
implies
he's
that it
holding
wasn't
a
rape.
knife to her throat and says, if you scream, then I'm going to cut your throat?
Yeah.
Well, that the
And now
very
she's forced
text
to marry this
is
guy?
an
I mean, that's
implication that it
Christianity for
wasn't
you.
rape. Because
Hey,
fornication.
We can go back to
Are
this
you
point.
like
Kurt,
awake
you got
and
your 2
alert?
minutes.
Is this even close? How is this even close to like ethical?
Okay, here,
It
I'll
doesn't
read
even
it
seem
out.
in the
Are we
right
still
room.
on ethics? I mean, are we still
Well,
on
but-
that subject, or what it is?
No, Acts of Andrew. I'll read it out.
Crazy.
Oh my goodness.
It's crazy, guys. I'm going crazy with this. Come on,
It's actually
Yes,
very
you
simple.
come on.
Fair enough, Doug. Kurt,
He boasts
why
in
would the author-
Maximilia. Say, Aegeates is the ruler. He becomes enraged, but he's powerless since Maximilia is learning about her relationship with Andrews. He vents his wrath on him, imprisoning despite the crowd's protests. He boasts to her that her teacher will die a horrible death. He ends up on the cross, smiles, and delivers a 3-day oration. On the 4th day, the crowd protests the injustice. Aegeates next offers a quid pro quo. Andrew will be freed in exchange for Maximilia having sex with him.
And
There you
Basil
go.
And
recovered from the chair.
who is Maximilia?
The woman that he told not to have sex with the ruler anymore, who he got crucified for.
Right.
What's
so
the
he
name of
was
this
he wasn't having
book we're
sex with his
talking
own
about?
wife, is what you're saying.
Andrew wasn't having sex with anyone. He
That's what
convinced
you said. He
him
said he
not
wasn't
to have
having sex with his
her
own
husband.
wife. That's what you said.
This is just a
That's what
fucked
you
up
said.
story,
There's
guys.
a ruler.
Guys, no offense, real quick. I just
Hey,
want to
Doug,
say
nobody
this
cares
is
what
really,
you got to say. That it's just a story. This is the conversation right now, dude.
Basil, shut
Track
the
on it,
fuck
track on
up.
the conversation.
This is just a really fucked up story.
Nobody
It's really
asked.
fucked up.
We're on it. We're talking about
It's
this
a
right now.
fucked up story, bitch. Fuck you, bitch.
Yeah, look at him.
Come
Look
on,
at him,
come
man.
on.
Fucking
Oh,
roasted.
yeah.
Come on.
Go fuck
Crashing
yourself,
out, Doug.
bitch.
Come on, chill out.
Fuck you.
Crashing out, man.
yeah, we don't
Wow.
have
Fuck
to.
you.
We don't have to
Chill
argue
out,
about
Doug.
that
Chill,
story.
bro.
Museum.
Hang on,
Uh,
moderation. Duck, calm down. And
Yeah.
Wi-Fi and Jet, I think you guys are missing out on a big opportunity here to ask Duck questions about his philosophy and or other stuff because Duck seems to know everything. He's fun.
Well, I do have to go. It's a little bit past the time I said I could stay till.
Could
But
I
me and Duck have talked a couple times.
Could I-
Oh! Nobody on fire muted Basil again for 2 minutes.
Can I get one
Good
quick
night.
question to the two people that were on the debate? And by the way, thank you guys all very much for doing that. That was a lot of fun to watch. In
Yeah,
regards
that
to
was strange. It
Yeah, in
turns
regards
sideways
to,
with the freaking slavery though, like for
real
real.
quick,
It
AJ,
turns straight freaking left. But
AJ,
go
I
ahead,
just have
bro.
I got a quick close question for you guys. In its current form, is America a Christian or secular society?
I would say more Christian.
Secular. Although
I
it's
think
going
secular.
Christian with the current administration.
It's turning secular to answer.
So I'm going to point this one more specifically at Wi-Fi as a follow-up. Would you say that American society is healthy right now or not?
No, I would say that so when I said it's a Christian nation, I said more. I said if it becomes more of a Christian nation, it would be healthier.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
So
say
can
that
you-
America started off more Christian, and it's historically been getting less and less Christian. Like slavery used to be legal, women had far fewer rights, like they couldn't vote, and then we've been getting more secular since its inception. I mean, it's always been a secular country because we have the freedom of religion, and that's in violation of the first commandment. But slavery was abolished. Women now have rights. So we're getting further and further removed from Christian ethics. But now our current administration is trying to pull us backwards, back into the horrible, toxic Christian ethics. They're taking away all sorts of rights. They took away the right to bodily autonomy. Next, they're probably going to go after interracial marriage. I mean, they're just trying their best to destroy the country.
They better not attack mine, because
I just find it interesting to say that we're a Christian society and then point out all these shortcomings and not try to take responsibility for those shortcomings. Wi-Fi.
Well, I think those shortcomings are ultimately from not being Christian enough.
Well, can you
Like,
point
if
to
you-
specific elements?
Yeah, birth rates. The birth rates among people who are not who don't go to church often are really low. They're not lower than secularists.
Human growth is on an exponential
Oh my
hockey shape J curve.
Because of secularists.
What is
America's
what is a
population
secularist?
Because of secularists
What
also.
is a secularist? What is
Someone
a
who-
secularist?
Someone who is not religiously affiliated.
Because of
Someone that Alex says is not religiously affiliated.
No, someone who self-reports as a nun. They call them nuns, right? In studies.
Okay.
Aren't nuns supposed to be celibate?
Oh my goodness.
So it's scientific.
Different kind of
So it's
nun.
a null value. So a secularist is a null value in the
It
spreadsheet.
literally, in the term nun, just means no religion.
Yeah.
It's a shorthand.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
Okay, so it's a zero.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
All
That's crazy to
secularists
me.
are zero.
That's crazy to me. That's insane how that works.
Well, take it up
It's
with them, not
interesting,
me.
Your number one example of where America's suffering is our birth rate's not high enough, as if having more people in
just
the country
provided
would
one
solve all of our
example.
problems.
Yeah.
No, I'm just.
Well,
They trying to
Islam
kick
has
everybody
higher
out.
fecundity rates typically than Christianity, so that's
Bringing
why
in more
the
people
Bible's
trying to
argument
kick
was more
everybody
moral.
out.
I gotta go, guys. I'll see you later. Have a good one.
Good one, Doug.
Bye, Doug.
I do
Good night,
have to
Doug.
go as well.
And
But,
Wi-Fi,
But before
I
you go,
appreciate you
Wi-Fi.
I appreciate you coming up, man. It was good having you on the show again.
Thanks for having me,
Before
Taco.
you go, Wi-Fi,
And thank you,
you
Jed.
have like another quick minute. I swear
Well,
I'll be as quick as
one
possible.
one just for you. Let's see what you can
Thank
throw in
you
there.
so much, Wi-Fi. I appreciate it. I came up on stage just because, and I know the conversation has moved on way past this. Jed said that he thinks that evolution should be taught because it's the scientific fact. That is slightly different from what I learn as somebody who's already working in the scientific fields of bioinformatics and biostatistics and who's working on getting an actual biology degree. What I have been taught is that evolution is a quantifiable, falsifiable, possible solution to unanswered questions about natural history and unsolved problems in our attempts to better understand the universe and use what we learn to improve human existence. What you are then further taught is how all of the data supports this model. We've never been able to find verifiable, repeatable data that evolution can't explain, that evolution doesn't predict, that doesn't fit the evolutionary model for how life developed on Earth from a set of common ancestry. So that is what I think should be taught, that evolution is a quantifiable, falsifiable, possible solution. If there is a better quantifiable, falsifiable, possible solution that can be supported with better verifiable, repeatable data, that should also be taught. That should probably be taught over evolution. If you got two equal theories, they both need to be taught. is the way I would view it. So that I just wanted to offer that differing opinion. It's slightly different. It's very close to what Jed said, but I think the differences, while subtle, are important, because it's not saying, oh, this is a fact, this is beyond question, because that is not how science works. Science needs to be questionable. That's the very idea of falsifiability, right? So evolution does purport to be falsifiable. It just never has been falsified. Like if we looked into the archaeological record and saw nothing but modern organisms, no matter how deep we dug, evolution would have been falsified. If we ran genomic comparisons between different species and we found that species just didn't share a significant number of genetic base pairs, would have been falsified. If we ever found a generation of organisms born that had 0 mutations in it, evolution would have been falsified. You know, there's like all of these instances at which it could have been falsified, but it hasn't. That's what we need to teach children. We need to teach them that so they can either refute the true model or build on it and improve human existence by doing so. That's just my view. And I appreciate you letting me give that to you before you go.
Yeah. Just one follow-up question. Is that the standard for everything that we should teach?
Oh gosh, I don't. Education is so complicated. I want to say yes. I think generally I would say yes.
Because it seems like something like human rights wouldn't fit in that category.
I think morality in general is subjective. That it's, you know, that's just my viewpoint. But I those are good questions.
Cool.
For sure.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate the
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks for the debate.
And
Austin, I will say I think I agree with every single thing that you said. You just
What's up, guys? How was the debate? I am going to bed here, but just wanted to check in with y'all. Go to Divine Liturgy tomorrow. I'm not going tomorrow, but I am going next week. My wife is currently serving on the nursery team at the Protestant church that we attend, but I am going next. She's way more open to consistently going. The first time we went, she was like, it was like a train hitter. She's like, I don't know what the heck just happened, but I don't like it. And then randomly she's like, hey, can we go again? And I was like, yeah, we can go again. And so I was going to continue going by myself, which is tough for me, just to be honest. But she, as long as she's not serving, she's willing to go. So that's a step in the right direction. And I'll be going next week. But thank you, Randy. Appreciate the $2. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Outrageous. Atheist L. Job Wi-Fi. Thank you, Jib. Appreciate y'all, guys. Gatheist L. No one's surprised. Godless Engineer is the most sensitive person ever. Oh, wow. Praise God, Randy. Apophatic. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for the $2. The analogy with the grandmother was great. Yeah, I like that one. Very poignant. But like, all right, so he thinks that me thinking that doctors performing transgender surgery should be publicly executed is morally repugnant to the point where he will never talk to me again. So I bring up, abortion and how literally he's affirming millions of deaths a year globally, 1 million a year in the US. Isn't that insane? 1 million babies are aborted per year in America. That's insane. It's literally nuts. And then if he affirms that and I find it morally repugnant, then I should never talk to him again. It's just, he's such a little girl. But yeah. And if that was, you see how he didn't leave though? If that was Sarah's panel or Modern Day Debate, which he has no respect for those people, he just has some sort of respect for breakfast tacos because he's an atheist or something, he would have rage quit because he has no respect for people unless you're in his camp. That Jeb dude was the worst ever. You think he was worse than Godless Engineer? I mean, intellectually, yeah. Dude, you know what's funny? I love Bryce. I think he did good. But I've been there. If you look at some of my old debates, bro, I looked the same way because I couldn't configure my camera the right way. I just finally figured out a decent way. We got cheap webcams, we got to grift harder, get some DSLR cameras. But yeah, his camera quality, dude. I was gonna say something, but it was like 2 minutes of the debate started, and I didn't want to make him nervous. But like, oh, I gotta fix my camera. So you think he was worse than Godless Engineer? Wow. Okay. Taco's panels. Yeah, dude. I don't know. Taco is generally nice to me, and so I appreciate him for that. But yeah, his panels are rough, man. Yeah. And then, but Jed too. Jed was like, I'll let you decide if my critique was external or internal. Like, what? What? Yeah. And it's funny when they bring up the Nordic countries, because literally like a secular nation that has 56% of the country members of a church. Granted, there's only like 8%, 10% that go monthly, which isn't even a lot, right? But I don't know, man. To call that a secular nation. And the best statistic is that even within that nation, so that nation does rank higher than other nations in the self-reported happiness. But then to see that within those studies, the more religiously affiliated you are, you actually rank slightly higher. So what are you proving with that study? My point. I was surprised by that. You guys showed up for the poll. Thank you. I've always been destroyed in polls because I'm always on atheist panels. 3 hours later, then yeah, you could go back and watch it. Although on my stream, my opening is muted, so I got to cut that out. Where's your comment? Yeah, literally pulled his own source and bro got instantly folded. I thought he was saying like, oh, well, he couldn't have sex with his own wife. I was like, that don't seem right. Like maybe, I guess, like there could be a situation because I wasn't familiar with the source. But that's like, you just, even if you're not familiar with the source, just ask them to bring the source up because they're all liars. And you literally pulled the source and he says, oh, well, he wouldn't have sex with this random woman. Oh, man. That's a good question. Yeah. Because I think there's like, it's like the Church of Scotland. Is that a Nordic nation? The Church of Sweden. It's like the main churches is the church of the country. So I don't know how to say it. Damadrick. Sorry if I said that wrong. Are you an atheist? I'm not sure. Because I agree here, but then they'll believe in things like human rights, which I brought up multiple times. But then they make excuses for it. And that's why I like to put it against Christian ethics. And I asked the hypothetical, if Christian ethics were true, or sorry, if Christian ethics were proven to make society better, should you believe in them? And they say, oh, no. Okay, why not? Well, we shouldn't believe in things unless they're real, they're true. Okay, well, what about human rights? Oh, yeah, well, we can just make up human rights, but we believe in them. Why? Because it makes society better. Oh, so you actually are inconsistent with the answer you just gave me on the hypothetical. Dude, so for the debate, when you got muted, imagine now me and Bryce were up there and people were paying to mute us during the conversation. That's the format that was given to us. And right before nobody told us that until we got to the debate. Then we get to the debate and he tells us that. And Bryce texts me, he's like, bro, what is this? You didn't tell me about this. I was like, what? And I didn't hear about it either. And then he was like, well, you've been to my panels before. Like, yeah, I've been to your panels. And then I was like, well, I've never watched a mega bloodbath. And then he's like, during the debate, he's like, this is the first mega bloodbath we've done. So I'm like, all right, so it's a completely new format. You don't tell me the format. And then I come in and so he ended up changing it for me, but that was crazy. Your phone was off. I was asking if you were an atheist, but I was basically I said, where was your quote or comment? I agree with this, but then they're inconsistent with this because they believe in things like human rights. which cannot be proven and demonstrated and shown to be true. They're just made up in their worldview. Yeah, man. I'm not an expert on philosophy, but I do love it. The ambiguity of being lost must feel good to the flesh. I don't like to psychoanalyze people, but I understand what you're saying. And I think that there's definitely a lot of that going on where you don't have to commit to something because it can't be objectively true, can't be proven to be objectively true. So I don't have to believe it. Or I think even a lot of Christians can do this when they don't like tag. And they say like, well, a reason that they could not like tag is that ambiguity. If Christianity is not objectively true 100% and it doesn't rely on your belief, but it actually is objectively true and can be proven to be true, then there really is no excuse. But I think also the Bible says that creation itself bears witness to us, right? That's like a divine revelation, is because God didn't just create the world. He sustains the world and he's revealing the world to us, if that makes sense, through our senses, through our capabilities. And I feel like that's a direct experience of God that we all have. Yeah. All right. So what does that have to do with human rights? Do human rights exist independently of a human mind? Is it real in that sense? No. If it's just made up, then why do you believe in it? Is it because it makes society better? If so, then if Christianity is proven to make society better, then you should believe in Christianity, whether it's true or not, even if it's just made up. That's the argument. Right. The point of tag is to be objectively true. And so if you reject tag, some people may, I don't like to psychoanalyze people, so just broadly speaking, some people may intuitively object to tag because they don't, even if they're Christian, because they don't want Christianity to be objectively true. They want some wiggle room. True. It's weird to find God through logic and reason and then defend that against smug idiots like Jed. Yeah. And it's funny because I had a spiritual experience in my friend's basement induced by psychedelics. So it wasn't logic and reason. It was God holding me by my throat and showing me the awfulness of my sin. And I'm grateful that he did that, because then it took me about a year to, like, once people started questioning me, like, why do you believe Christianity? It's like, all right, I had this spiritual experience, but then, I mean, other people have spiritual experiences and become Muslims. So I guess I do have to have some kind of proof for what I believe. And that's what started getting me into apologetics. Yes, sir. Yeah, man. It's tough in the debate to admit you haven't heard or thought about something. But it's weird. Like, saying I'm not an expert isn't an answer to a question, Godless engineer. It's not. What are you doing? All right. So, Jamadra, can you answer the question about human rights, though? Where's your proof of human rights? Alex, you were low-key cooking in your closing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Closings have been tough for me. I've been trying to get better at them, so I appreciate that. Bryce, so yeah, I think Bryce did good. I want to do many more debates with Bryce in the future. I have a knack for networking and getting to know people, and even, reaching out to atheists and getting debates going. So I want to use that for the good of all of my friends and people who I debate with as well, and get them on stage more. People, like, I do a lot of debates. I did a lot of debates very quickly. And there's a danger in that because, I mean, I know like when I was I had like 2 weeks where I did like 8 debates, and that was a lot. And sometimes it might have been too much because you kind of get lost in the sauce. You're studying for so many different things, staying up till 2 a.m. And then the next day you're tired. But it's helped me a lot. And I want other people to do more debates. We need more people to do more debates. What do you mean by proof? All right, I got to go to bed, but proof of human rights, any proof. In like what are human rights? Start with that. Are human rights made up by men? What's up, Mella? Why do you believe in yourself when there's no peer-reviewed scientific evidence for it? That's hilarious. I'm gonna use that. Stolen. Chug some syrup and stay up. Dude, I have real authentic maple syrup up in my fridge right now. You know what? One of the fattest things I've been doing. So we usually eat some form of chicken at night, right? It's cheap, feeds the family, everybody likes it. But then you run out of like sauces to use with chicken. So I've been making breaded chicken, like air fried chicken. So not as unhealthy as fried chicken, but then I'll just put like maple syrup on it. I'm like, this is so fat. Chicken maple. All right. He doesn't seem to be answering questions here. So I'm going to go to bed. I appreciate you all for being here. If you're not subscribed yet, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on the way out if you haven't. It helps once the live goes under, or once the live ends. What am I talking about? It actually gets pushed out to other people. So the more likes that are on it, the more it'll get pushed out. I appreciate all the super chats again. Thank you so much. I plan to do much more debates in the future. I want to do more political ideology, abortion, feminism, Christian nationalism. What else? I have a whole list. Let me bring it up. What else am I trying to debate here? Uh-oh. It said my doc can't be opened. Thanks for the sticker. Appreciate you, dog. Super sticker. Where's my... Oh, right here. Gun laws, DEI, capitalism, spanking as abuse. Evolution, but evolution's a lot of studying. These other things I'm familiar with, but evolution, I have a lot to study on that. That'll be some way down the road. Same-sex marriage. Yeah, those are some good ones I want to get into. But I appreciate all of you. Thank you again. And I'm going to bed. Have a good night. Appreciate y'all.